Good afternoon, all. I welcome everyone to this second day of this unique series, which has been designed by our architect Nikhil Kochar, and really off the beat, different type of topics. And thank you very much for the excellent feedback which all of you have given us for yesterday, both the topics, both the speakers, and I'm sure today is not going to be different. We have two experts today, and again, very relevant and valid topics, and we'll definitely take home a lot of stuff today as well. So I recognize presence of Nikhil Kochar, Chief Advisor at IIA India. I also welcome Mr. Dinesh Bareja, our expert faculty today for the first session. My colleague in Regional Council at WIRC, CA Umesh Sharma. Umesh bhai, welcome. And also my colleague coordinator, CA Ketan Sayya. Ketan bhai, welcome. So friends, we are ready to start. And before we go on to the first session, I again request Nikhil for a brief about today's session topic and his views. Nikhil, over to you.
Thank you so much, Murtaza, CA Umesh Sharma ji, CA Ketan Saya ji, old friend Dinesh Bareja. Thank you for coordinating and taking this path-breaking initiative of organizing this session, which is jointly conducted by WIRC along with the Institute of Internal Auditors India. We firmly believe that the way forward for continuous learning is to collaborate with the specialists. As I was discussing and touched upon briefly yesterday, a CA degree is like an MBBS, and then after you do your MBS, you may want to become a specialist in, maybe child surgery, cardiothoracic, vascular, ophthalmology. Similarly, I think a chartered accountancy degree can be followed up with, if you have an interest in governance, risk and controls, with a CIA certification, which is in any way governance, risk and controls is the area which we believe and firmly follow and try to advocate within the Institute of Internal Auditors. I think this is a fantastic initiative, and I think the subject has also been, considerably, discussed, researched before we got into it along with the speakers. Cybersecurity and technology are areas today which no one can ignore. I think all chartered accountants are today aware that whether we like it or not, we have to use technology in order to be able to work more efficiently. The pandemic has just reinforced the same belief. Keeping this factor in mind, yesterday's program on robotic process automation by Mohit Gupta, as well as IT risk management and cloud security audit by Yukti Arora, I think were steps in the same direction. I think all of us are aware, and I think just today or yesterday I got an email which seemed like a phishing email. So I sent it to one or two people saying, I think this is a phishing email and I don't think I should open the links. And of course, they agreed with me, fortunately. Cybersecurity is something which none of us are immune to. We all keep reading cases about people, whose passwords are being hacked or cajoled out of, and then they find that their bank balances are running empty. This is a truth which even our old IIA president and your WRC chairman, Mr. Anil Bhandari, had also re-emphasized time and again. So I think we will all have a lot to learn in today's session by Dinesh ji, where he's going to be talking about cybersecurity for internal auditors. And Murtaza earlier mentioned that technology and internal audit was something which is off the beaten track. And truly in line with that, Dinesh is also going to be speaking about cybersecurity, which are risks off the beaten track. I think they are not the beaten track. They are now almost becoming a highway because there are so many of these risks which are present. And of course, it will later be followed by Mr. Dharmesh Jadav, who will be speaking on digitization of internal audit. I think both these subjects are excellent, relevant, and I do hope you will all learn from them. I'm also looking forward to learning from these learned speakers, and wish you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikhil. I think quite well covered on the various topics. As we proceed ahead, I also welcome our second speaker, CA Dharmesh Jadav. Dharmesh, welcome. And he's going to cover digitization of internal audit. But coming to the cyber security, I think Nikhil mentioned that it has become so much more relevant in the last 15 to 18 months because of work from home, work from anywhere, any device is logging in anywhere, and hence, like it becomes a very important part of the audit universe. And I'm sure we can pick up a few aspects of it so that we can also try and cover during the course of our audit. With that, let us eagerly, all of us are waiting to listen to Dinesh ji. So I'll now request my colleague, C. Umesh Sharma, to give his views also and introduce today's learner speaker, Mr. Dinesh Bareja. Umesh bhai, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Murtuza. I am a GST person, but I am very much interested in this subject. Uh, Dear participants, we were in the starting discussing about the cyber security, and there was a discussion that you are an expert in the morning and in the evening you are not an expert because of the vast changes that are happening in the cyber security. And Murtuza has rightly pointed out that it's like a universe, and in this universe, and if I compare it with the galaxy, when we come to know about universe, it is always in the light, and whose light it is. In the cyber security, there is a darkness of many frauds, and many issues are there. And who is there to show the light? The light will be shown by Dinesh. Dinesh का मतलब ही होता है सूरज, sun. So we have very expert faculty Dinesh Bareja sir today with us to throw the light on the darkness of the cyber security, and I hope all participants will have a very good knowledge sharing today. Dinesh sir is a founder and COO of Open Security Alliance and IndiaWatch.in, and also advisor to Cyberspace Foundation DIAT Pune. Dinesh sir is an information security management professional working in ITIS domains for more than a decade and consulting much large projects in India and overseas. With the extensive business experience in trading, manufacturing, and IT sector, Sir brings a unique blend of techno-commercial expertise, offering pragmatic and practical advisory and strategic consultancy services in cybersecurity implementation, audit, and investigation. And Sir is a hands-on professional in security risk management, GRC, security incident investigation, response and management. Sir is CISA, CISM, ITIL, ISMS, Los Angeles, certified in ERM, Tornado, and incident response, GCHQ. So lots of knowledge, lots of degrees are there. So welcome you, sir, for this session, and let's have your experience. Let's have your light of knowledge to all of us. Over to you, Murtada bhai.
Thank you, Umesh bhai. And over to Dinesh ji. The floor is yours. You can start.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Umesh ji, Murtaza ji, Ketan ji, as well as Nikhil, old friend. Thank you very much. If you give me a moment, I'll just share my screen. And before I share out my screen, I would just like to thank Umesh ji for the introduction. There was a lot of good things you said about me, and like I was talking to you guys earlier, is that all of you are CAs and I'm a BA, and it sort of gladdens my heart when I hear somebody speaking so nicely about me, and I don't know whether I really deserve all that or not. But I will let that be, and hope that the audience, will be happy with what we present. Umesh ji also mentioned about me being hands-on, which is really right, and commercial and techno-commercial knowledge. I must say that I'm not an engineer or a computer science or a computing technology guy. And so my learning is completely hands-on, and I call it the school of hard knocks, which I'm sure all of you guys know. That experience and being hit by experience and being hit by situations is where you keep learning. And I've learned technology along the way. And one of the things which a lot of friends have also spoken to me or said to me, including chartered accountants, is that it is difficult to learn technology. And I always say it's not difficult. And so over a period of time, you will learn, and you will find that it is not about technology. You don't need to really dive into technology. You should really basically understand how it works. And with your sort of training and knowledge in audits, it is not difficult for you to really understand how things work. So putting one and one together is what you've been learned, what you've been trained to do. So I think you are still going right. And it was nice to know about the previous day, RPA and risk management and cloud security or cloud computing. And the upcoming, the next session would be, like you mentioned, sir, about digitization of internal audit. The one thing before I start out, when I say risks of the beaten track, I would just like to put to sort of record over here that all of you folks are chartered accountants and you are privy to a lot of information with your clients. I sincerely believe that you should have a very strong security system in place. We've seen things that happen which have happened wrong, and there is currently a sort of a case which is happening in India also, which is not really much in the news, but one of the large law firms in Delhi was hacked many years back, and that case is currently in court. So anyway, keeping all that aside and word of caution over here, so let me start off by sharing my screen. Where do I share my screen from? This is another problem over here. Show screen. Yeah, I will just turn it on my screen.
Sir, it's done. We can see your screen.
They can see your screen,
Yeah.
Dinesh.
Yeah. So my presentation is on right now, correct? Yeah. Okay. And
Yes.
so, okay, folks, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for having me today over here. When I was asked to do the topic, and it was more about, hey, let us talk about risk itself, and they are internal auditors. It was more about the fact that let me just share my experience and what I've learned along the way, and what I think is missing, some sort of things which are missing among people who are doing audits. And so even as all of you guys would be getting into cybersecurity, it is something which you really cannot avoid. And as part of your financial audits, also you will ask for ITGC and SOC 2, SOC 3 sort of reports. So this is all part of, I would say, your growing profession. And as an internal auditor, it is, the need for the internal auditor to have started looking at cybersecurity as a risk area and as an advisor has been there for some time, and for the CA also. So this is growing, and there is no way we can sort of say it is not my area, it is not my cup of tea. Okay, so accepting that it is my cup of tea, the whole idea right now was also that something which you would learn, let us say later on, you would realize later on, that maybe if I am spending an hour or two with you, I might as well talk about it. So that is the reason why I said that my risks off the beaten track. There are certain risks which I will be talking about which are normal or which are happening, and something which I will be talking about the beaten track. So getting started off, this is me, and Reggie's already spoken about me, so we don't spend time. There have some assumptions over here that you're familiar with cybersecurity, and you've been sort of doing cybersecurity audit or reviews, or you're reading and learning about it. And obviously, every day you read and learn, or you want to add this to your practice. In any case, that is my assumption that you're familiar and with some jargon on cybersecurity and a low level of tech speak. I don't talk technology, so that's something which I know I will be staying away. So I'll try to keep my talk as simple as possible, and but feel free to interrupt if you want to, and any form of interaction is welcome. This is quite a large presentation, and if I will probably, maybe if I will jump some places, they won't really matter, because I would be happy to share this presentation later on if anybody wants to have it. Okay. Why doesn't this move? So setting the context of the presentation, as members of IIA and ICA, it was a tough job for you guys to learn the nuances of credit and debit. And when we look at it as a non-accounting person, it looks so simple that only credit and debit, that's all, and that's what you got to learn. But accounting is just a play of money, and that's what it looks like. But then these two things are basically the words on which conglomerates and companies have carried, and it's a business function which is a role play across the enterprise. So, of course, and as far as the profession is concerned, you move from pure accounting to becoming trusted advisors, and it is growing further and further. Where we sort of all that we can do is, I would say, think about where it is going. And with the pandemic, things have moved faster. So life, of course, was not easy. And then for you guys, for you accountants and chart accountants and auditors, SOX, ITEC, SOC 1, 2, 3, and then we have cyber security which came along, or security, and that is also a business function. People don't believe it, but it is very fast become a business function. And of course, cyber security has oversight as well as interference, whereas the accounting function was oversight, and here now we have oversight with interference. And of course, cybersecurity must look at the world outside the business perimeter also, and which of course again applies to your profession too. So for the CA, cybersecurity auditing, that is, it's another onion with a few more layers. So we have risk, we talk about risk, we talk about asset, we talk about configuration, change, patch, passwords, access. And if this is not complex, then there is a need to manage compliance with multiple laws, regulations, circulars. And to do all this, you have to apply the principles of CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, PPT, people, process, technology, non-repudiation, least privilege. But these are all such a lot of, I would say, things to do at the same time, that even if we are talking of GRC, or we're talking just to get into the whole business, we're talking about having to need to learn a lot and a lot. And this is like what I call a Rakshas, basically, a Rakshas or a demon. And above all this, there's a demon of technology, and which scares people off. It scares every non-technology guy away. Which scares the CIO, the CEO, or the C, or the board, or the chart accountant, or the auditor, or whatever, because they think that you have to learn much more. But you really think at times, we should have done engineering instead of done commerce and economics or something. But of course, there is a wrong thought to bring in, and it is no need to do that, like I said in the beginning itself. So, but it is a huge responsibility to bring change, and to change is the most difficult thing to bring about, whether inside or outside. And to get your client off the beaten track, and to understand it is data that is the ultimate asset, not the mean machine. I always talk about this because see, we tend to concentrate so much on our asset. We tend to concentrate so much on the 1 lakh rupee or the 2 lakh rupee which we have spent on the laptop. We forget what is inside the laptop. We forget the fact that you can go and replicate that laptop. You can buy new. You can buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laptops. But if your data is lost, your data is lost. So that is the problem. That is the ultimate asset which you should be looking at or thinking about, and not the mean machine itself. And that is what you will find is that everybody focuses on network security, not data security, whereas that is the main thing to be protecting. So you'll find what I will talk about it. We call it boys' toys. You'll find people with a lot of great amount of equipment as well as technology or whatever in place, and but the data security is not there. So like it talks about data security. So new IT, and when I say new IT, I mean cloud also. Cloud. People think I'm not on the cloud, I'm secure. You are not secure. So we have a known path which is well traveled into cyber risk. Okay. And this is the risk which we normally talk about. We always talk about phishing, insider threat, compliance, ransomware, APT, DOS attacks, and pandemics and natural disasters. This pandemic thing is a very interesting thing, because I remember being with the client, making client presentation for their business. They were getting into a BCP DR which we were doing for them. And this was sometime in the month of January of 2020. Sorry, yeah, the last year. And we talked about pandemic, that yes, pandemic is a risk. And during a pandemic, what we do. And the only thing we talked about pandemic was, okay, there will be some sort of, bird flu which will come along and whatever, and some people will get infected. Nobody in their wildest dreams even thought that that the whole country would close down. So that is what the risk well traveled. And the process is standard responses. You have, what happens is that you have risk register visited once a year. The risk register does not have a risk owner. You have standard responses which are just put in the register so that there is a compliance. Somebody who comes to do a third party audit says, yes, we have it in place. And another example is about a firm where I was doing an audit. I was engaged. The risk ownership is part of the CIU and the ERM, but the residual risk decisions are given to the CISO. The poor guy doesn't even know what happened or why they brought that into place. And this is how it works. So eventually, the ownership is someplace else, whereas the decisions are given to somebody else. So the risk or the path well traveled, if you see some of these things where, check this out, non-DOS incidents. Non-DOS was denial of service, which was involving ransomware. 13% over there, 3% breaches of vulnerability exploitation. This is not the reason why I put the arrow over there. That is not the really action area. The action area is on top. 85% was human element. And nobody is looking at that. We are looking at the ransomware part of it, the DOS part of it, which is out of ransomware. It is not even direct ransomware. We are talking about the breaches of vulnerability exploitation. Everybody is doing a VA and PT. You ask any client of yours, VA PT kiya? Yes kiya. Audit kiya? Nahi kiya. Wo kyun karenge? So that's how it is. Impacts, you see, impacts BEC, business email compromise. 95% incidents between $250 to $1 million. Forensics, why? And the reason why I've marked them out is, I will talk about it later. So see, the number of areas where we are myopic, we don't look at them as a priority area because we have not sat down to think about them. So it's time for us to get off the beaten track and look into the future considering new risks. There may be future risks, but how soon will the future be upon us? Anybody's guess. Privacy related issues. There has been a discussion about the privacy bill for the last 2-3 years. It is still lying in Parliament. But does it mean that we should wait for it to come? There is already a huge amount of activity which is happening. And when it comes, you will have 2 years or 3 years. And that is not sufficient for a conglomerate, even if it is an India-based conglomerate with no overseas operation. It is not possible, impossible for them to become privacy compliant within 2 years' time. Impossible. AI-based attacks or whatever happening. Air-gapped infrastructure. There is something called an air gap, which I'm sure all of you know about. It just says that, okay, there is a gap between this and that, and nobody can jump over the gap. But there is a huge thing that is not, it is not at all, I would say, something which one can say that no, it will not work. And off the beaten track also include what we are not doing in the present. Diligence. Are we really diligent about what we are doing? Data classification, roles and responsibilities, awareness. Classification in a mid-sized organization or small-sized organization of, let us say, even if it is 20 to 30 people, it could take you 1 year to do that. Roles and responsibilities, are they really, somebody really put it in place that even if the role hasn't been filled in? Proactive and preventive action. We are not doing that. We are doing reactive actions. Not just us, and it's not our fault. The whole industry is about reaction. The government is also in reactive mode. Our government is not in proactive or preventive mode. The Chinese example is right there. Were we proactive? Were we preventive? No. It rubs off. So let us take inspiration from a few things. This is just 2 or 3, but of course there's a lot of inspirational material around all over. And it doesn't mean that we should, well, I do read all these, but as well as a number of other publications or this thing on a day-to-day basis. But it doesn't mean that you get carried away with what everybody says, and because we have to really localize what we are reading over there. And there's a lot of stuff which is published which is not really relevant to our ecosystem. So taking a look at this all over again. So the a few, I would say, a couple of extracts from them. The earlier slide which should not have been there anyway. So the World Economic Forum, all businesses should account for ecological risks. But anyway, that's nature-related risks. For Fortune 500 companies, they found that nearly half mentioned biodiversity in the sustainability report, but only 5 had set specific, measurable, and time-bound targets. We find this in our reports too. We find this in what we speak every day. We talk about many things, but have we set specific, measurable, and time-bound targets? And this is the case even in the privacy bill which is coming up. There is a lot of forward-looking statements, but specific, measurable, and time-bound. So wherein it says, it's very correct, very clear that nature-related risks are undervalued. And how does it matter with cybersecurity? It does matter in every which way. Everything which we do or everything which happens to us, like I said earlier, cybersecurity not only has oversight, it interferes in every single aspect of business and life. So again, from the report, from the same report in the World Economic Forum, interdisciplinary collaboration to unlock AI potential. We are saying interdisciplinary, or we are saying association, organization collaboration right now with the WIRC as well as IIA. Right? It brings great potential to unlock a lot of knowledge over here. So that's where we talk about AI. It can bring significant risk. Multilateral cooperation is needed to address challenges such as security verification, deepfake videos, mass surveillance, and advanced weaponry. It's not something which is futuristic. It is happening today. It is not something which is going to happen to somebody else. It is happening to us, to our organizations. It is not something which will happen to somebody else. Our own company reputation can be at stake with deepfake videos. How prepared are we to really see that something is happening or not happening? What we call intelligence. Do we have the intelligence? Do we have the system to put the intelligence in place? And if we see again the short-term or the long-term outlook, we find cyber attacks are there. At number 5, on the infrastructure. At number 8, theft of money or data. I feel that it should still go higher. And in the long term, again, the likelihood of data fraud or theft happening is at number 6. This is global. The cyber attack likelihood is number 7. So you can see the amount of, I would say, the probability is growing, and it is going to become bigger and bigger. It has moved. It was, if I remember well, it was around 10 or 11, about a few years back, 4 or 5 years back, when WEF started putting out these reports and looking at cybersecurity as a risk itself. So off the reading track, we look ahead at new technologies, policy, discussions, geopolitics, online media, and it is your best input for threat intelligence. People talk about threat intelligence. Yes, your organization will talk about threat intelligence also. Nobody talks about the fact that there is everything happening around you. Every single report being printed around you is also intelligence. It is input. It is input to you, for you to really, I would say, analyze and extract intelligence from that. So you have to question every single audit report and finding. Dive into the how, when, and where, and why of the technology, the solution. So it's not about knowing technology. It's just about asking why does this work? How does it work? What is the solution? What is it going to do? What is the justification of buying it and putting it in place? That's all. And you'll find people unable to answer those questions. Or they will start going into the jargon sort of language and trying to derail you and your questioning. And at which time it doesn't matter, or it really you can bring somebody else who really knows the business, who's a techie guy, and bring him on. So keep the theory of security in the back of your mind, because business is paramount and every solution has to think about business first. You can't think about technology first and then putting it into business. Business is paramount. And so that's why I say that your lack of understanding of technology or of jargon is not a sign of weakness. Demonstrate your willingness to learn. And that is sadly missing in many people. So today's, I would say, attendance again, looking at, from yesterday, the way things been spoken about, that is a willingness which is there. So here are the risks which are waiting diligent mitigation. Like I said, 85%, 95% human element, awareness, who's doing that and to what level and how diligent are they doing it? How diligently are they doing it? Credentials, LinkedIn data breach. Did anybody even worry about it? Anybody in the company, anybody in the large conglomerate, anybody in the large Indian IT firm or wherever, did anybody even worry LinkedIn breach happened? No, because they said, oh, nothing can happen to me. It is LinkedIn which got bashed and not me. But that's a sad thought. There is a risk behind everything. We talked about BEC, business email risk. It is huge over here too. Just, I think, this was last week. There was a report about a company based out of Mumbai or someplace. Lost about 2.2 crores. It's a daily affair. People don't realize that they can, I would say, get the money back somehow or the other, but they don't make the effort. They don't go to the law. They don't go and file a complaint. Forensics. The reason I mentioned it is because there's no internal capability. Go back to your clients. I just ask them, forensics, what do you do? Supposing something goes wrong, do you have the capability to even know what has gone wrong? Or even forget about capability to know what has gone wrong. Do you even have the capability or the understanding to know how to react? First responder. That is a big question. The first response is what? Cover it up. That is wrong. And legal guidance. Again, big question over there. Ask the legal team how it is. Do they have cyber security or cyber law within their capability? You will find it to be sadly lacking over there. Just having done a 1 month program on cybersecurity does not make a person a cybersecurity or a cyber lawyer. I have done that too, and I still have not understood cyber law, sir. So these are awaiting action, but there is no action on these areas. Ransomware, effective defense, again, everybody is being hit by the ransomware. So cybersecurity, we talked about privacy, right? The PVD-PV bill coming. The last 3 years, we've been hearing it is coming. Okay, right now as we speak, it was supposed to be put in the monsoon session of Parliament, and then it was not there. But anyway, the Parliament sessions have been washed out, so that is a different story altogether. PDPV is still with the Parliamentary Committee, and the committee is also not meeting. So when will it come is a separate thing. It's coming. So what are the security leaders doing? They are attending trainings in PDPV, surprisingly. They are learning PDPV, which is not even a law. We don't know how much it will change. And these same persons will carry dubious certifications into new jobs. They will be in the DPOs over there. What is the risk which is there for you today? Consider risk and advise, early stage preparation or design of changes in the company. Today, we are bringing a new system into the company. Are they still, doing the same thing, just plugging it in? Or are we putting change into the place and making it future ready? There's a huge change which involves change in people, place, and technology, people, process, and technology, data governance, architecture, so classification, for example. I just spoke about that. It's not about just marking a few documents confidential or whatever. That is what people are doing. That is what companies are doing. Just, okay, you just take a Word document or another document, say it is confidential, finished, data classification done. No. What about the terabytes of data which you have got lying all over the place or being generated on a day-to-day basis? What about, okay, we talk about your profession. What about all the financial data which you are doing? What about all the slicing, dicing which you do? What about all those? See, today you have maybe one Excel sheet where you have all the data and you're slicing and dicing that. You pass it to somebody else, that man makes another copy, then another copy. So one copy, by the time it comes to a final stage, you've got 10, 20, 50 copies, versions. What about that? Isn't it need to be classified? But what do? You classify the last one, confidential. How does it work? Identification of PII, SPDI, non-personal. Personal identifiable information, sensitive personal information, which is told by the IIT Act, and non-personal data, another by e-commerce. What do we know where it is? Do we know do our employees really are they aware of what is all this sort of stuff? Do we have automated controls? Or have you thought about automated controls? We've got trained in PDPP, but we have not got trained in data classification. So GDPR is available, but maybe the fundamentals can be taken from there, which can be another area. So there are risks in thinking that we say we are compliant with X, Y, and Z. How is the compliance in the letter or in the spirit? But there's no encryption. USB is not allowed. We all say that in our company, USB is not allowed. But in small time, we say, oh, except for a few managers and top managers, they can bring it in. Why? Are they God's gift? It has to be changed. It has to change. Off the beaten track, you look at technology resources. Automation is key, but we bring in the best cutting edge solution. That is boys' toys. When I talk about boys' toys, we talk about, hey, I must have the latest technology. But what does it do? So you have disparate systems which may not talk to one another. Have you, as an internal auditor, as an auditor, can you just ask what have you purchased in the last 5 years, and how do they talk to each other, and what have you brought out of that? So in 5 years, you got 20 different solutions for security or for technology also. What is the reporting? What is the utilization? What is the? We talk about ROI, and every technology guy runs away from the word ROI. I say fine, run away from ROI, but what about ROU? Return on utilization, right? So you need to evaluate as an auditor the effectiveness of utilization with effort and output. I will just put these two sort of technologies over here, DLP and SIM. DLP stands for Data Loss Prevention, and SIM is Security Incident and Event Management. They are both highly prized and highly sought after tools or solutions in a company, and you should go and see how they work. Firstly, you have to spend at least 40-50 lakhs for each or more, depending on the brand which you're purchasing. After which, what is the effectiveness? 5 out of 10 you will find are ineffective. Like in DLP, I'll give you an example. There's this large conglomerate which has got a DLP in place. They have the best brand. They spend about 1 crore plus on that. They have a team of 5 people who are watching it day in and day out. But it does nothing. Why? Because it is in a mode which is called monitoring mode. In the monitoring mode, it is only seeing the traffic going and coming out. It doesn't do anything to the traffic. And when you ask the guy, what is the DLP report? Oh man, there's a lot of malicious activity. There's a wrong activity happening. So okay, have you stopped that activity? No, not yet. It's been 4 years since they installed it, and they're paying an AMC for every year too. So sir, that is a case for you towards the resource. They will never have an ROI. They will never have an ROU also. So is this something which we need to really see? Absolutely, we need to see, and not just as a financial auditor, but even as a security auditor, I need to see that, and I need to make a comment or an observation in my report that this is not utilized and it should be dumped. Simple. If you're not using it, why do you have it? Why do you have AMC cost and you have the cost of 5 people who are sitting over there? Then HR. The human is more important than the technology which runs the business. So what is the server is out of action or goes wrong? That's why, but nobody cared about the human resource who they hired. They never analyzed why there's a high attrition from the security team. They never analyzed the resource utilization on the security team. A company of 1,000 people or a company of 10,000 people has a security team of 1 person or 2 persons, and they expect them to be superhuman beings. The utilization is more than 100% or more than 200%, more than 300%. What do they do? What do they expect them to do? So is the size of the IS team optimal? That guy will run away from your company as soon as possible. Then there are only engineers who are hired. And I always say that with passion because I'm a non-engineer. And I say, why only engineers are hired? Why does one think only engineers can be, these security professionals? Why can't non-engineers be that? So besides that, does anybody have a growth plan? What about the awareness? It is not given the importance it should be given to it. It happens once a year. There are no refreshers. New risks are not taken on. The company makes one PowerPoint presentation, puts it on the internet and tells you to go and do it. Look at it. Some companies are doing more than that. Very good. But the usual thing is what? Training in secure development and testing. A lot of companies are doing software development internally, but secure development is totally nobody's business. Reviewing of awareness program design and effectiveness, nobody has done that. People are just taking what is the percentage of people who have attended, obtaining user feedback. Again, not really happening. Videos on demand, they sound good, but who's looking at them and how? Correlation of results. We are doing phishing and wishing drills, but are we correlating the results with trainings? Again, no. Are we looking at drill results or effectiveness of the past year or quarters? Can we decouple security awareness from the HR or the training department? This is another very big problem in companies. The HR or the training department is the owner of the security awareness sessions, and it is the day they cut budgets for training, security awareness suffers, and it doesn't happen. In any case, it's not happening. So these are, again, you are on the track, but you have to get off the beaten track. Everybody is doing that, but you have to get off and do something more. And they also say that the human is the biggest insider risk, but the human is also the first line of defense. And the more the human knows, the stronger the defense. LinkedIn data breach, interestingly, happened everywhere, but it is not a risk to us. And the credentials have been compromised, and it's easy to slice and dice data from other dumps also. It's not that it's happened to Yahoo, LinkedIn, or Aadhaar or whatever. My data is also over there. And common password is a common habit. So no one looks at this risk in the enterprise. It is one which can really open up the network. You see this. You see this as an example. Ashley Madison's website, which promoted dating among for cheating, basically, among married people. Okay. This is what happened to Ashley Madison. Ashley Madison data was leaked out. 37 million spouses identified in the hack. 9.7 GB data file was posted in the dark web. If you see below 15,000 are from government agencies using .gov and .mil domain names. The first foolish thing was to use their official mail address on a site like this, and now they are compromised. So the attorney in the Department of Justice, there were people from the White House or wherever. Right? What about India? Bharat Matrimony, October. Air India, May. JustPay data breach, January 21. Domino's, May 21. MobiQuick, Upstocks. So do you think you are not in any of these places, or your clients are not in any of these places, or the people working in your clients are not in any of these places? Credentials are valuable. Anybody can pick up this data, slice and dice, and you guys know analysis like anybody else, better than anybody else. Just dumping it into an Excel and doing something over there is enough. What about Just Dial? How much time will it take me or anybody to put these things together, to pull out 5 or 10 names or 20 names or 1,000 names out of these? So that was credentials. From somebody else's bad luck comes my bad luck. Business email compromise. The FBI says 2018, 1.29 billion. 2019, 1.7. And 2020, 1.86, even though the number of complaints have gone down. But the risk is still not addressed. Controls are not reviewed. There is no manual follow-up or a separate machine. I have advised my customers a number of times. It can happen to anybody. It is happening on a day-to-day basis with people in this country right now as I talk to you. Very simple. It doesn't happen overnight. The malicious guy gets in between you and your customer, or you and your vendor, and keeps a lookout. The day you send out an invoice, he or she changes the bank name, and the money is gone. This is again from the how to mitigate is from the FBI advisory. For me, it's a very simple thing. Change. Set up a separate machine. That's it. Make a phone call. Use a fax machine for your invoices. Make sure that separate machine has got only these 5 or 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 client names and addresses. That's it. Internal capability in forensics, incident response, cyber law, internal familiarity with the local law enforcement. There was this customer of mine, that client of mine, who had a big problem trying to get an FIR registered. Eventually, we told him, why don't you hire a lawyer outside? Of course, it was a big hit to the ego of the legal team, but they did that, and within 24 hours, there was an FIR on the table. Forensics and incident response are some things which one really needs. Okay, when you say, I don't need forensics, fair enough, but you need incident response. You will have an incident response team, but I will really sincerely advise you to go and check with in your client organization the sort of incident response which they have, capability which they have. And if they don't have the capability, the least they can do is hire from outside. So in pandemic times, again, off the beaten track, work from home, yes, very good. Nice 3-letter thing which is working, holds a lot of promise, changed the way we work, saved billions of dollars for companies. Right. But the threat surface has increased, brought millions of weak endpoints. And with every problem possible, what we have been trying to do is control in the office perimeter. But nearly 2 years and we have beaten the IS and operational issues. But no one has made an assessment of the risk. Is the home working environment safe for the workplace and the family? What is the size of the family members? Does the family have additional use of machines? Security of internet access? Mental stress and work from home? Cost of incident response? Supposing something goes wrong, there's a ransomware attack. Today, all the machines which are hit by ransomware are in the same perimeter, the same facility. Tomorrow, they are at 100 different locations. How fast can you react? Someone's phone doesn't work, someone's email doesn't work, someone's this doesn't work, someone's that doesn't work. Effectiveness and practicality of audit. How do you audit them? How do you audit 100,000 endpoints? Availability and productivity. Have you really looked at that? But are we looking at today, or are we going to look at a few years down the line? Then again, give me a minute, please. Domain names. Everybody has a domain name. It's just 100 rupees, 500 rupee cost, that's all. But do you know who's the administrator? This is the brand name. What is the associated email address for managing that domain name? Who does the payments? Where do the alerts go? What are the risk of like sounding names and the cost of acquiring such names? So today I have got ICICI Bank, and if I need IICI Bank, somebody sets up an IICI Bank. Ownership in event of a split in the company, your partnership firm, and this is a brand. Who takes it? The valuation of the domain name and the inclusion as a brand asset. Have you ever thought about taking it as a brand asset too, within the balance sheet, or recognize it as a brand and recognize that it has a value? I'll give you an example. The Indian Embassy in Bahrain. We're talking about an incident which happened about 9 years back. They lost the domain because they possibly had a fallout with the person who was doing the website, because that person had registered the domain name or whatever. So maybe he had a fallout, they lost the contract, and he didn't renew it. So Indian Embassy Bahrain took over a new domain name with somebody else, and the old domain they just let it be. So that domain moved into being a porn site because it had traffic coming. As I talked to you, there was a company which is also in cybersecurity. They have changed their name, and they have just let their old domain name go, and it is the last I heard about it was also used as a porn site. Google lost its domain for about half an hour. It happens to the best people, but that is what we need to look at, which nobody looks at. The same thing with cloud credentials. Oh, I am on the cloud. I am on the cloud. Very good. Whose name is on the account? Who is the owner of the cloud access, the account password? What is the backup policy? What is the access controls? Who are the reviews? Okay. Are they reviewed or not? What are we doing? What are we not doing? Just saying that I'm on the cloud, it doesn't mean that way. Technology has evolved and technology threats have evolved. And if you see, there is nothing great about that. But of course, it has moved from unsophisticated people to sophisticated people to cooperate. And now it is moving to state. And if you see again over here, this sort of is of course from the Verizon report for 2014. So it talks about up to 2013, which of course we can just extrapolate these graphs over here. Misuse and error seems to have gone up. Yes, will go up. Of course, social also I'm sure has gone up hugely. Malware, all of this. There's nothing which has gone down. Physical will probably go down slightly or will flatten out if we extrapolate that. But this is what it actually represents. It was fun and at one time, because if you remember there was something called the I Love You virus. It was created by a kid, a young teenager. Then people wanted to become famous, and then they wanted fortune, where you had criminals coming in, and they are still, of course, the criminals are still there. And we have, I would say, pockets of affluence, villages of affluence in the country too, from where various scams are carried out. And then we have force, which sort of comes, where you have nation states and non-state groups. So we've had the huge, I would say, attacks over the last few years, and even recently, which are still attributed to nation states, but it is anybody's guess. But if it is a outcome of, I would say, the investigations, then yes, it is that way. So looking ahead, and make your moves or individually, which you can do individually or as a business. Passwordless authentication, cloud computing, cloud security. Zero trust is again a very big thing which should be looked at. Identity and access management is something which people have in place, but they don't look at very clearly. I'm talking about a diligence perspective. Messaging security. Email is part of our life, but it is also the most I would say widely used vector for attacks. Whether you talk phishing, cyber attacks, cyber war, whatever, it starts with 99% starts with, or 90 or 92% of these attacks start with phishing. Sorry, with an email. Endpoint security. The endpoint basically means the laptop or the person who's working on a machine, the end employee. Securing the automation, security automation. We talk about RPA, yes, very good. So what can come into RPA? Security with trusted third parties. Third parties, huge risk all over again. And mobile device security, protecting your digital data. Rise of automotive hacking. All of us are driving cars, and they are becoming more and more electronic. And of course, supply chain. Another very, this is in the news of late again, supply chain. With the SolarWinds and the Kaseya attack, and then there was an attack on Saudi Aramco also, which is again supply chain, which is interesting in its own way, yes. So the future basically not known to anybody. Fair enough, we are living in India and a lot of us believe in astrology. Sorry. But we all know that we take it with a pinch of salt, and because we can only indulge in predictive speculation. So big risks and threats to look out for in the short term: supply chain, cloud, global outages. Spend a couple of minutes on each of them. Network fragility and digital life threats and risks, and missing regulatory umbrella. So supply chain, SolarWinds and Kaseya, and even Aramco for that matter, where you have, in the case of SolarWinds and Kaseya, their product was updates came through, but those updates were infected by the hackers, and anybody who was applying the updates got hit by ransomware. In case of Saudi Aramco, what happened was that their third-party vendor or AMC guy or somebody who was infected, and they lost about 1 some terabytes of data, with the people with those guys asking for a $50 million ransom. And that's how it was. And in the cloud, of course, we have AWS and Azure. Every once in a while, you hear about things going wrong and some outage happening. Then there was global outages. Well, your Akamai and Fastly, they are basically what we call CDNs, cloud data networks. So these companies are such which allow quick and fast, I would say, data and websites being served. And Fastly had gone down, Akamai went down, bringing down thousands of sites all over the world. The fragility of networks is very obvious when you see things like WannaCry virus, which hit the whole world, or we see critical infrastructure in the country or elsewhere being hit, or we talk about cyber war happening. So yes, the way it can be brought down is not too difficult for a determined, I would say, a threat actor, but that has to be looked at, and that has to be considered too. And then you have digital life and your threats and risks in there. So you have cybercrime, which hits you nearly every day. You've got malicious emails and malicious SMSs and malicious whatever happening for a company. Espionage and ransomware is there. Or you miss the regulatory umbrella. So you have privacy and data protection, which is not in place right now, but it is missing. So that is a risk again, because when you don't have this regulatory umbrella on you, there you miss this thing. Because if there is no law to protect you from data loss, theft, or whatever, how will you really, feel safe? So we take time and we look at this. So the bottom line being that, really a risk, you cannot be seeing it as an output of threats, but one has to change thinking. Maybe it's an output of the thinking which we have. So 2020 spike in malicious cyber activity continues and is growing. Systemic design weaknesses are being exploited. Nobody is looking at that. Lucrative criminal activities are mainstream. It's a billion and trillion dollar industry. I would say it's a $1 billion business, cybercrime. And you can get things anywhere. If you look back at the Cosmos, all of you know about Cosmos Bank, right? What did they do? They just were able to compromise the system over there, make 5 or 10 cards, distribute those cards across the world. The players at the other end in about 20 countries printed those cards, created those cards, went to the ATMs, pulled out $100, not more than $100 per transaction. Overall, I think it was what, 5 or 10 million. I don't remember the number, but it was millions which was taken out within 24 hours. Mainstream. Can any of us, really put our finger and say that we have a network which is that fast or that strong? And then the money comes in together. It is all brought into one place. So there can be 1,000 people who have taken out the money in 20 plus different countries in a 24-hour period and put it into one single place. That is the sort of thing which is happening. That is the speed at which things happen. And one needs to sort of really change thinking and look at risk in a different manner altogether. And like I was, we were talking about, or Ramesh also mentioned earlier before we started this session, was when I sort of dislike being called an expert. The reason is very simple, because as Ramesh also mentioned, I'm an expert in the morning, by evening I'm done. Or maybe in a few hours you're done. the dynamism of the whole system, the dynamism of this what do you call it, profession or this area is so high, so huge that you have to really be on your toes, and it takes a toll on you. Yes, absolutely. But there are areas of specialization. There are each vertical, each line of business, each line of life, each area of life needs you to think differently, needs you to really bring this flavor or this sort of thought process into place. So while I thank you guys, I would just like to mention one more thing over here before I go off. Is that there is one area which we normally don't talk, and even I have not spoken about over here. And a number of you folks listening to me would be, having clients or working in companies which are in manufacturing or in shipping or in power or in the water area, or what do we call large industries, where we use, in addition to IT, they use something called OT. So IT is information technology and OT is operational technology. So where we use status oil and gas, for example, or even aerospace or railways, for example. And it's something which is not being looked at by people, and which is a huge mistake as far as our own nation is concerned. We have again people who are concerned, absolutely, yes. We have people who are just concerned, and in the letter or not in the spirit. So that needs to be looked at also. So beaten track is huge. The beaten track is huge. Healthcare, again, something which is, I call it virgin territory. Hospitality, virgin territory. Travel industry, yes. Airlines and all, yes, they may be there. But we saw Air India, that was the third party area. Again, third party risk which has manifested itself. So the only, I would say, message as I sign off now is that you have to look at things differently. Your counterparts will present to you the risk statement or a risk register which is standardized. So maybe you should just keep it aside for a moment and let your own imagination run and see what else can go wrong based on what you have been reading and what you have been seeing around you in the world. It's not just about getting a standardized list of threats, risks and threats, and just looking at that and saying, okay, we have our risk registers now ready. Okay, so thank you very much for your time and for listening to me.
Thank you, Dinesh ji. I think quite well covered, a vast topic. We would request the participants to post questions if any. We'll take a few questions. मिश्रा जी, कोई क्वेश्चंस आए होंगे तो प्रेजेंट करिए. मिश्रा जी.
Whilst we wait for Mr. Mishra to respond, perhaps Dinesh, I could ask you a small question. What is your take on the increasing risk from the Internet of Things? Because today, even when you're looking at cars, the cars are using a lot of smart devices. So, I mean, is it possible tomorrow to someone to actually stop my car from functioning because it's using too much of electronic technology? Or someone to break into my house because I'm using some smart lights? Maybe if you could spend a couple of minutes telling us about that, it would also be interesting at the least. Thanks.
More interesting if you just take a couple of minutes off, go to YouTube and search for a video which is about a year plus, which is more than 2 years or 3 years old, where it shows a car being driven at around 100 miles plus per hour. It was a US car. It was in the US on the highway. So that was going, of course, in miles per hour, not in kilometers per hour. And that car is taken over by a hacking team while it is being driven. Okay, and they take over the car. They control the brakes, they control the accelerator, they control the steering wheel, and it is dangerous, of course, going at that speed, and then they just move it off. As far as India is concerned, this concern came up a few years again sometime back, because the high-end cars which are coming into the country even now, they have got systems which are built in to communicate, and those systems to communicate, of course, need SIM cards. And these SIM cards which they were using were not from any of the telecom providers in the country, but they were standardized SIM cards, which I don't know whether they really connect to the network, or they connect to the network and go back into a private network or whatever. But that sort of, as I said, a lot of things go into the black hole and they're there. But yes, there is again a lot of, I would say, research happening. A couple of universities which I know where research is happening for connected cars, but we are still a bit way away from there. And when we talk about IoT, see, there I have a sort of a contrarian view that yes, IoT risk is huge, no doubt, and considering the fact that we have not secured our major systems. So securing the IoT devices which we own, for example, the Siri, or our TV, or our televisions and our refrigerators and all that, that is a sort of a tall order for us, frankly. The level of awareness needed for a person who's buying a smart device is huge. So even if we talk about smart cities, the need for actual, I would say, awareness or controls in place is sadly missing. And a case in point is something which is used everywhere, that is a CCTV camera. So in spite of the fact that there was a government directive on Chinese equipment, it continues to be the largest supplier, the largest vendor, the largest source of CCTV cameras and equipment. And it is anybody's guess where things are going or who can come in, whether it is backdoored or not, despite the various, I would say, protestations by these organizations or these countries, like let's say. So we are still, I would say, we are still in grade one, not even grade one. We are yet to come to grade one as far as security is concerned. So IoT is still far off. Connected cars are already here, and exploitation will happen for sure. Whether it gets reported or not is a different thing. Maybe some government official gets get compromised, or a minister gets compromised, it will hit the news. Then there may be some legislation will come out of that. But like I said earlier, see, it's about being proactive and preventive. Unfortunately, we are all in a reactive life. That is where it's a systemic issue. Frankly, that's what it is. We know the writing on the wall. We can see the writing on the wall, but we are slow to sort of bring policy, procedure, legislation in place, or even our institutions to really understand the risk and to put things out. I give an example of this pandemic, for example. See, today, in the last year, in 1 year, in 12 to 13 months' time, the government has been able to reach out to every single citizen in the country, whether it's he or she is, in the village, connected or disconnected, or even not even knowing about internet, and he or she knows about COVID. Okay, now this is the cyber world is our life today, and we still talk about the fact that 30-40% of our citizens do not know about this, or the risk from using a mobile phone. People, I don't know how many people would have lost money in villages because of those SMSs and because of those Nigerian frauds which happen. There may be no, I would say, statistics for that. So there's a huge population which is vulnerable to all this. Another example would be this pornography, or even the exploitation of women and children. It happens rife across the country in the rural areas and the poor segments of our citizenry. Is there anybody who is talking to them or training them that this can happen to you or this can't happen to you? Oh. So these, like I said, we are still in grade, kindergarten. We still have to go to grade 1, class 1 mein jana hamare. IoT and all is like, talking of going the 20th, 30th floor or highly sophisticated areas. अरे गाड़ी तो चलाना सीख लें. This reminds me of a dialogue from a ad which is running on the TV nowadays. I don't know whether you guys have seen that ad. It is a very simple and very, very, strong message over there. So there's this village which wants to make a school. They need 25 lakhs. So they decide that they will go to KBC. When the guy says कि KBC चलते हैं, the guy says पहले ABC तो सीख ले, तो तब KBC सोचना. So that's how it is. We are very far away from a lot of things, and what I could present to you in the last half an hour, 1 hour is some thoughts and concerns, I would say. I hope some folks carry. You are all very trusted advisors to your clients and to your companies. Just go back and take a look at what's happening, and we'll know. It's easy for us to put our hand in our pocket when we are stopped by a cop on the street. That sort of is a thought process which we have to get out of our mind. That so I'm sure you guys would agree that GST is not so easy as sales tax was. Back to you, Murtuza ji. Ketan ji.
So one other thing, Dinesh ji, see, like as part of while we do the SOX testing or the internal financial control, in each and every of a normal process also, there is a process risk and control and there is a IT risk and control. Now, like say, assuming it is a sale process and we have given access to our customers for uploading certain documents or the purchase order directly on a system or whatever, and hence in that way, like our systems or solution or the environment becomes a little vulnerable. So like as a chartered accountant, normally most of the internal auditors are CA or with finance background. According to you, what is the basic we should read or look at the videos, or like if some couple of qualifications which you feel add on which we should do, what are those? If you can guide us on those a little, that will be nice.
You see, the first thing is, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, there are just two words, credit and debit, which I know about. Okay, and based on these two words, there is a huge practice. And like I said, that these two words carry conglomerates on their shoulders. Everything comes later on. Everything comes later on. It's only on these two words. And we may talk about balance sheet and this and that and trial balance and profit and loss and ledgers and whatever. But these are the two words which carry everything. And it looks so simple कि एक side में ये लिखा हुआ, एक side में वो लिखा हुआ, and what is the difference? That's all, right? But then everybody plays with these two columns itself and does whatever they want to do, frauds or whatever. So the system which you talk about when we talk about process, the process risk and the control risk over there, it is the same thing which is happening, because you know it better than anybody else what will be the input and what should be the output. A process, what has happened is that I have taken the process for granted. See, I am tuned mentally that if it's a computer, सही बोलेगा. I am mentally tuned that अगर जो मैंने Google को पूछा तो सही बोलेगा. It is my job has to be first to be suspicious. And the latest paradigm in this cybersecurity business is zero trust. I trust nobody. Fundamentally speaking, I trust nobody. What does zero trust say? Application, talking to application does not trust the application. Don't trust it. Ask. So as far as the auditor, the chartered accountant is concerned, or the CA or the internal auditor is concerned, he has to question the input, the integrity of the input, the integrity of the person who is putting the input. Also, number one, the output has to be as per whatever the algorithm which is there, and then don't trust the algorithm also. And every audit, do not trust it. And every audit, I may have done an audit today, I'll do the next audit maybe 6 months later. Why should I trust it that time? Ye 6 mahine mein somebody may have tampered over there also, which is what we don't do, because we don't have time for that, or we have not factored that, or our client may not factor that sort of effort in terms of monetary return. Last time to kiya tha aapne. That's it. What more must you be done? Just sign on this. But where the tampering happened, we don't know. Has somebody tampered? We don't know. Is our sampling enough or not? That is also a question. Do we have time to sample? Do we have the tools to sample? As far as qualifications are concerned, I don't think there is any program right now where I have not come across any program which sort of teaches in India, at least, except for a couple of CAs I've heard about from time to time who talk about forensic accounting. Okay. But formal trainings are sadly missing in many areas in the country. They are available overseas, but then the cost becomes a very different thing altogether. I'll give you an example. Example is third-party risk assessment. TPRM, very huge area in today's day and age, right? Nobody in the country is doing that, but you can go and do. There are two associations or two organizations in the US which provide that. The pricing starts at around $2,000. So, how many of us will do that? But there are third-party TPRM, TPR or vendor risk assessment professionals who are practicing only in that area, who have learned again through the school of hard knocks and doing things there. And that's again a huge area and becoming more and more concerned day by day. But Murtaji, I hope that answers your question in terms of the process and the IT risk, which you had in mind. But forensic accounting is a huge area. Yeah.
Thank you. Nikhil, anything from your side? Otherwise, we'll formally conclude the session then. Nikhil?
No, I think it's been a good learning experience for all of us to just understand the enormity of this entire subject. And I don't think it is possible for anyone to escape from this particular area. The only way we can handle it perhaps is with little better knowledge, little better awareness, and of course the use of experts in order to ensure that we can reduce the risks. I don't think it is possible to eliminate the risks. Dinesh could say answer that, but definitely I think it's been a great session, and we should now move on to the next one. Thank you.
Great. So I then request CA Ketan Sayya to carry out a formal and much deserved vote of thanks for this session. Ketan bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Murtuza bhai. I think one of the excellent session on the cyber security which we had, covering our basic problems which we face of, we save various versions of files of Excel, beginning with that, and, going through the case studies of Air India or Bharat Matrimony, and, we did learn some new terminology, like we always talk of ROI. Today we learned what is ROU, and also IT and OT, operational, the transformation, the information technology, operational technology. Also, sir, one, before I conclude the vote of thanks, like we as a chartered accountant as of today, and all other people working from home are, accessing a lot of other IT network like AnyDesk or Team Viewers. And earlier when, people were working in a company, there were firewalls and all those things. So, whether this has increased the IT risk, and if you are carrying out any cyber audit, do we, how do we cover this risk? And also, when we are allowing our employees to use such software, if we are allowing them, what is the threat? If you can, just in 1 minute, if you can throw light.
So what we call threat surface has gone outside the boundaries. So you can be sitting in Pakistan and doing whatever you're doing, or you could be sitting in China, or you could be sitting in a village. And every organization, CIO, CTO, and organization is very happy for a few reasons. Reason number one, बिजली का खर्चा खत्म हो गया. No electricity, no air conditioning, nothing. You saved millions, lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees in terms of you were saving in terms of all that. Companies have given up their rental premises or broken up their leases. They're saving money over there. Yes. Okay. Move to the cloud, and the risk is basically the fact that all these boys and girls are now working from wherever they are, and you don't even know where they are.
Correct.
The risk is there. The risk is in the sort of connectivity which they've got. Now let us say you're working, Ketanji, at home. You don't know who is jumping on your network and who has compromised your network, because the company now they turn back and say हमारा VPN है. अरे VPN तो ठीक है. VPN is it is operational from your it is a pipe from your laptop to the server. What about sitting and looking at your machine and working on your machine? What about compromising your machine? They say, no, our configuration is very strong. I say, very good. But I have now compromised the laptop, the keylogger, or I have done something in the company or in the house. I have put a video camera over there and he doesn't even know about it. Now I can see everything which is happening. So somebody comes into your house, gas wala comes into your house, puts a video camera and goes away. It is happening with people. You don't know who is your enemy. You don't know who's trying to spy on you. That's why I said, also the fact that the CA firms, the law firms, they are highly vulnerable. Sir, Panama Papers to sab jante hai na. We all know about Panama Papers. We all know about radio tapes. We also know what people don't know is I don't remember the law firm in Delhi. It's a Supreme Court law firm. When I remember, I will maybe send it to Nikhil and he can then share it ahead. It is in public news, but it has been put out in the Supreme Court in a different name. And it is being called as the Indian Panama Papers, sir. All of you are privy to a lot of information. You will never want it to go out. Never. So that needs to be done. That needs to be done everywhere, sir. Not just with those companies. They have to look. So when you go back to the company wherever you are auditing, you have to make sure they have to start looking beyond those happy days.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I think the participants will agree that we had one of the excellent session, and we, from our bottom of heart, we thank Dinesh ji for sparing his valuable time and explaining us in very very basic language about the cyber security and the various aspects we learned today. Dinesh ji, from the WIRCs, on behalf of all the participants, on behalf of IIA, I propose a very well deserved vote of thanks and request all the participants to carry it with the loud round of applause.
Thank you very much, and my pleasure to have been here. And thanks again for having invited me. By the way, hi Dharmesh, how are you?
Yeah. Hi, Dinesh. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I must admit, what Ketanji just mentioned, and I second that. That I also learned, and I actually sat right from the beginning of the session, and I could not move, though I had few calls to attend, but it was that interesting, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled with your thing. Thank you very much. So Nikhil and everybody, if it's okay, can I drop off?
Sure.
I would have loved to stay and listen to Dharmesh ji about about digitization, but maybe some other day. Thank you.
By all means, thank you, Dinesh. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. So with that, we move on to the second session, and again an interesting topic, digitization of internal audit. And we have CA Dharmesh Jadav for that. And without taking much time, I think let us give maximum time to him and listen to him. So I now request again CA Ketan Sayya to introduce our faculty today. Ketan bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Murtuza bhai. I think looking at the Dharmesh profile, I think it's going to be one more very interesting session for all of the professional who are in the internal audit. The Dharmesh is heading Mazars India. He's a partner at Mazars India. For the benefit of the members who are not aware about the Mazars, is having presence in 90 countries, and it has got around 42,000 professionals working in this firm. So he's having a very wide experience in terms of past 13 years. Dharmesh has been in this area. He has been handling internal audits of NBFCs, insurance broking, mutual funds, and apart from handling this, the audit, to his credit, Dharmesh had one project. He carried out, the prevention of money laundering review for one of the large insurance company, and based on that, IRDA carried out, the review of this into the IRDA's functioning of one of the large insurance company about this the review of Prevention of Money Laundering Act. And I think a lot of changes we have seen in IRDA mainly because of Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Earlier, say one simple example, earlier anybody could pay anybody's premium. The later on they restricted. I mean, this is one small example what we are aware, those who are in touch with the insurance industry. So Dharmesh ji, we welcome you, and we are really thankful for sparing your valuable time and coming over to the platform of WIRC and IIA. Very good evening to you, and I hand over the charge, as rightly told by Murtuza bhai, without wasting our time, and hand over to you, sir. Please carry on.
Welcome.
Thank you, Ketan ji, for such a lovely introduction. Thank you, Murtuza. Thank you, Nikhil sir, for having me here, for inviting me and sharing my experience in internal audit and how the internal audit processes are getting digitized, and what are the nuances of the digitization of the internal audit process. I will touch upon the largely two sections. One is basically how the internal audit has evolved, and how the digitization of the internal audit is taking place currently. And third will be on the smart and digital internal audit. What do we generally cover as a part of smart and digital internal audit? First of all, what do we mean by smart and digital internal audit? And some of the key deliverables that we submit as a part of the smart and key digital internal audit. I will just start sharing my screen now. Just let me know if you can see the screen.
Yeah, we can see.
Yes.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So I will start with the how the evolution of automation has taken place, and with that, how the internal audit techniques has evolved. So over the last few decades, you must have seen that. I think my presentation is just going off. Just hold on.
Dharmesh, we can see it. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So so on the left hand side, if you see that how from it there has been an emerging the technology has been emerged over a few decades. We started with the calculators few decades ago, and then spreadsheets came into picture. Based on the spreadsheets, we started with the analytics, and likewise when we started maturing, there was a remote connectivity and the internet came in. With that, if you see the graph with the time, how these technologies actually complicated the internal audit processes, and hence how the audit technologies has also emerged. So on the bottom, if you see on the left, bottom left, there are various techniques of internal audits like inspection, physical verification, analytical procedures, CAT, so we call it as computer assisted audit technology, system walkthroughs and configuration. And the last, where we will have more focused discussion is intelligent audit using AI, artificial intelligence, robotic process automations, and remotely access tools. So if you see in the first initial few years, the more focus was on the inspection, physical verification, inquiry, observation. That was more like a physical in nature, mainly because the the informations were not in the form of a soft form. It was mainly on the hard form. Then if you see the analytical procedures, if you see gradually it has increased the use of analytical procedures. That is mainly because of the remote connectivity, the internet, the ERP system. Most of the conglomerate back then had started implementing the Tally and then SAP, and now we have much more advanced systems also in place. And the computer audit technology has, again, the usage of that has been increased, mainly because of the ERP evolution. Many companies have started using the ERP systems because unless there is a system in place, you cannot use computer assisted audit technologies. System walkthroughs, initially there was no systems in place, so obviously the system walkthroughs were not important to review. But now if you see, you cannot perform the internal audit unless and until you have done the system walkthroughs and the configuration test. One of the point which Dinesh ji also mentioned, the review of the configurations, which was missing earlier. It is important because what happens is that if you do not review the configuration and just rely on the automation, you may have a lot of outputs which is not expected, and that is why the review of the configuration is very much important, which is kind of increasing now. The focus has been on review of the configurations as well. Now slowly and gradually, as there are new technologies that emerged, a lot of ERPs has implemented. The new ERPs has been implemented in most of the industries, mainly into BFSI. I would call it. I will say that there are a lot of tech tools kind of implemented. Right from the M fund for the mutual fund, for Life Asia for an insurance company. How they are integrated and how the robotic process automations or a robotic audit, I would say, play a role, that we will discuss in detail. Now, if you see the graph, so there are two parts to it. One is robotic process automation, and the second is robotic audit. Now, they both are different in a way that when I talk about robotic process automation, that mainly from the management point of view. Now, you would have a lot of processes that can be automated. Now, those processes, how to identify those processes? Those processes where the transactions are voluminous, they are recurring every day, that can be automated. Now, if you see on the right hand side, below process automation. Now, the process automations can happen at to ensure the resource optimization, to process standardization, to have an efficiency and effectiveness, and hence the cost savings, to interact with multiple ERPs, because that is one of the reason where there are data leakages, there are outputs not getting generated as per the expectation, because most of the ERPs currently being used in companies, many companies are still not integrated in a way that they do not talk to each other. What model generally is used by the company is extracting an output from one particular system and then uploading to the another system, which becomes an input for that particular system. So how to integrate that there we can use robotic audit, RPA, robotic process automations. The second is compliance risk management automations. Now, you would have a lot of controls that needs to be tested on a periodical basis. Now, those controls could be local, if it can be at a national level, or maybe if you have a global presence, that at a global level. So with the use of robotic process automation, all those repetitive natures of controls can be tested automatically. What is the process for testing? We will get into the details again in the next slides. The control rationalizations. When I say control rationalizations, based on my experience, what I've noticed is there is a redundancy of the controls. There is an overlapping of the controls. So with the use of robotic process automations, we can actually identify if certain controls are not needed, or that the process can be re-engineered. Validate the configurations. Now, with the use of AI and machine learning, we can actually validate the configurations. Now, here it's very much important. I'll just take an example of an insurance company. Why validating of configurations is a very tricky situation for many companies. Now, in insurance, you would have multiple products, and multiple products have individual configurations in a particular system, from where your claims, from where your premium, your death benefits, your other maturity benefits get calculated. So it is very much important that your configurations, or maybe the review, are very much customized to individual product. Now, while I have given an example of insurance, but it is very much relevant for all the companies which has multiple products, multiple sets of processes, which has basically runs with the model of distributions, or which runs with a model of branches. So how those are customized, the robotic process automations can do that for all the products or the branches. And then the last is test control performance evidences. Now this is very important. So I had a presentation with a client, and that they asked me that what is the evidence that the control has been tested. And I think most of the people are right now thinking they must be also having the same question. Now, robotic process automations, we can actually configure to say that take a screenshot of every test that you perform, and against every test there will be a backup evidences which will be like an audit trail which will happen. The last is audit and continuous control monitoring. This is very much important, because nowadays the board or the management or the senior management, they are very much interested in getting the exception report or the dashboard on a daily basis. They do not want to wait for a period to get over, while they will ask for the MIS or a dashboard on a monthly basis. But they also want to look at what is the inventory expenditures. So expenditures on the inventory. What is the procurement expenditure? What is the payroll cost? On the first of every month. Now, how this is possible? This is possible with a use of continuous controls monitoring, and that can be automated with the use of technology. Right. We also have a BI tool, which is a business analytics tool. So which has certain internal controls automation fed in. So I'll take a very simple example of procurement to pay process. Now, for example, if you have a delegation of authority metrics fed in the system, where the beyond, for example, 5 lakhs PO needs to be approved by, let's say, CFO, right? Now we must have noticed, during our experience of reviewing the P2P, there are split of POs to kind of get away with that delegation of authority into to 1:2 or maybe 1:3, and total is more than 5 lakh rupees. But CFO, the approval will not go to the CFO, but the same will be approved at a lower level. Now, how do you monitor that in a continuous controls monitoring? Now we create a configuration. So there is a configuration in the system which actually trigger on a daily basis. You can pick up a period within whether you have picked up within 5 days or maybe last 10 working days, whether there was a split of PO. You can get into the details of whether who was the user who had done that, whether there is a concentration in a region, in a particular branch or particular user. So that helps in identifying who is the culprit, right? So I just gave you an example of that. The left hand side, which is more very much important, so we have 3 lines of model in the as per the COSO framework. So robotic process automations can happen, at all the lines of model. So first is the self-assessment, which is nothing but control self-assessment. So the control self-assessment can be done by the robotic process automations. I explained to you how that can be done. The second line of defense is where there is a compliance adherence for ICOFR. There is a management testing that needs to be done to be reported to the statutory auditors, or there are enterprise-wide risk management controls identified that you want to test and report to the management. There are certain automations that we have for IT and cybersecurity, very specifically on the ITGC front. While Dinesh ji mentioned a lot of other things which cannot be automated right now, but there are a wide variety of IT and cybersecurity that can also be automated. The third line of defense, which is the concurrent and internal audits, external audit, limited reviews, and special reviews, we will more focus on the internal audits. How the same can be automated. Now, what has changed during the evolution of audit? So I would like to give certain perspective here. So traditionally, we were dependent on manpower and experience, the skill sets. While in my view, this will never go. There will always be a dependency on the manpower. But what has happened recently, there is a dependency on manpower, but there are certain tools available in the market. There are techniques that we have adopted. In the future, in the automated cognitive automation, there will be a limited dependency on the manpower, and most of the things what manpower are doing right now, they will be replaced by a robotic automation or certain other tools. Now, that does not mean that the manpower will not be required. That means that they will be used, to kind of do certain strategic level work, because they are the ones who kind of feed the robots. So there is no way that there won't be a manpower which will be required to do the audit. So the second is the limited and traditional audit area. So if you must have noticed, how, in fact, I also learned, I started my journey in 2008 as an article trainee. I used to do an audit of 5-6 areas. That was my scope of work. Now, sales, I used to look at the expenses, I used to look at the procurement, and that is about it, and financial statement, of course. But now those days are changed. Now people are asking for a business context. You cannot do the audit unless you review certain technical areas. For example, in a real estate internal audit, you can do the procurement reviews, but if you couple that with a techno-commercial audit, or you bring in engineers who can do the better audit than a chartered accountant, or maybe along with the chartered accountant, because chartered accountant or maybe an MBA or any finance guy will be able to comment on the finance or maybe the financial controls on it. But as far as the technical part, you would need a civil engineers to comment whether the cement what is used based on the BOM or the BOQ, whether you required so many metric tons of cement, or you require 10% less or 10% more, and comment on it. So now that is happening to give a business context. In the future, there will be a focus on the cost saving. Most of the audit will be conducted, or in fact they are conducted offline, for last more than a year. Earlier the data was available in the physical form and the soft form also, but there were very few companies which had soft forms. Most of the invoices also were not standardized because there was no ERP available, or ERP was not implemented rather, and hence there was no standardization of the invoices or any other document that I talk about. Now, with the use of technology, with the use of ERP, with a lot of evolution that has happened, many places, I think most of the companies, I'm just leaving the small or some of the medium-sized companies also, they do not have a standard. Otherwise, most of the companies have a standard form of invoice or the PO or the processes. Earlier, the mindset was of the detective in nature. People used to be, detective. While there will be certain processes will be detective in future as well, because by nature they are detective. But more focus on the preventive control mechanism. In future, there will be proactive plus predictive control mechanism. Now there are tools available in the market. There are certain data analytics tool which predicts that in which area, based on certain inputs that you give, there will be fraud, or they predict that what is the probability of fraud happening in that particular region or that particular area, right? If you look at the control effectiveness, so I will just jumping a little bit from here, but since it is we are talking about the detective control and preventive control, the preventive controls are preferred controls than the detective controls, and hence it is important to look at that what is the overall control dashboard looks like. While in my opinion, automated and the preventive controls as the best form of controls to have, management should look at, or the internal auditor should look at, what is the percentage of manual controls and what is the percentage of detective control in an organization, and try to create a strategy how to move, from manual control to automated control and from detective control to preventive. Have a 3 years or 4 years journey planned, that what are the key preventive detective controls that you should move to preventive, or manual control to automated controls. Earlier, the audit used to be sample based audits. There used to be a defined percentage of sample we used to do. There was no volume also, again, in past, because if I were to say that, the banks or maybe insurance, you see the number of transactions happening now and earlier, you will see a huge change, right? Now, with the use of technology, 100% control testing is possible in most of the cases. While it is not applicable to all the cases, but in most cases, it can be done with the use of data analytics, with the use of robotic process automations. The 100% on-site was done earlier. I think we have left those days, and it is. I would say that you can work from anywhere. It's not work from home anywhere. And I was listening to Dinesh as well, that people are working from anywhere, and then how do we control the people? Where are they sitting? Who is looking into, peeping into your computer? And there is a risk of insider trading as well, because the people who works for a listed company, they are having a sensitive data in their laptops. Unintentionally, anybody can see that. If you have a guest at home and you are working and there are certain sensitive files open, anybody can look at it, right? So these are certain risks they are emerging, and that needs to be tackled. In the automated, 100% control testing will happen in the majority of the areas, because the way we see, I think most of the companies are automating their processes. With automation in their internal processes, all the processes will be tested automatic with the use of automation. My personal view, what I have seen is, while COVID has done a lot of damages, a lot of damages to our lives, but at the same time, if you talk about the digitization, I think in last 1 year, the kind of digitization that has happened in India or maybe globally, I think if there was no COVID, I think we could have taken more 25 years or maybe more than that. So I would touch upon the key challenges faced by the companies during the audit, and how do we manage, or how do we tackle that now? And these are legacy issues related to the data management. So I don't think so anybody here on the call, any participant wouldn't agree with me that you face a challenge with regards to the data, that data is not receiving on time. So that is one of the problems that I think all the internal auditors face these days. The correctness of the data, which is the must, so all your analysis depends upon the correctness of the data, right? So how do we check the integrity or the correctness of the data is more important, and where it is stored. The ERP, I just touched upon, a few minutes earlier, that multiple ERPs are used and they're not integrated. Hence, again, it is very much important to have a sanity on the data, whether the data is accurate, whether the data is correct, or there is no modification is done before sharing the data with you. So how do we how I used to tackle is that I used to sit in front, right in front of the process owner, that you extract the data in front of me. I do not want to have any issues later on, right? So, and again, auditors are not acquainted to all the all the ERPs. So when I started, I was also not acquainted to use all the ERPs and the access rights. Audit team. Now there is why so you have noticed that there is a attrition in the audit team as well, and every team will have a different way of working. So one is that perspective. The second perspective is the rotation of internal audit, right? So every individual team or the set of team members will have different methodology and approach to use. The next is the audit coverage. There are limited audit processes or maybe areas covered in an audit cycle. Auditor might not have might not cover all the checklist areas, and the sample based analysis. The next is the audit periodicity. Though the periodicity mostly these days is annual in a year, so you have 12 processes and then you cover once a year all the processes, and you kind of allocate on a quarterly basis. That is how it is done. But what is happening is that these days the things are so dynamic that you do not want to wait for the situations where you detect a particular a problem after 3-4 months. Okay, by the time you kind of detect that, the impact of that particular risk materializing will be more, and you would like to minimize that. The reporting, because of the change in the team, the different way of approaching or different methodology used for the internal audit. There are different, and likewise there are different reporting skills also in different teams. The demand for on-demand visibility. Now, management wants to have key informations for the decision making. It is not possible in a regular internal audit that you do, because we do once a quarter is over, or maybe a concurrent audit when the month is over. Barring few cases where I know in the financial sector that it is T+0 or T+1, which is transaction plus on the same day of transaction, or transaction plus 1 day. And the audit cost. So audit cost is more when you are doing the time-based audit output. Higher level of process owners time involvement also gets in, because every quarter if you have a different team, the same process is covered, the process owner will end up kind of explaining the same process again and again, right? So that is where the robotic will come in play. Now, how robotic reduces the legacy dependency? So we understood the legacy dependency in the earlier slides, and how robots can kind of reduce the legacy dependency. So it has knowledge and experience, because it has certain histories of performing, and there is a configuration that is done based on the experienced subject matter experts. Since it is a system, it moves faster and efficient. There is a seamless flow of information across the organization, because the bots actually what it does is it can log into any multiple ERPs. So while you may have an integrated ERPs, but with the use of bots, it can actually log into your one account to another account, or from one ERP to another ERP, to reconcile things and send it to you, the reconciliation report. The timeliness, because it is robotic. So the timeliness is not an issue because again, I mean, it depends upon the number of bots that you are implementing. Right. So if you have a lakhs of transactions every month, and one particular bot can tackle maybe 20,000 transactions a month, and if you just implement 2 bots, then you will not be able to reach the timeline. So for that, you need to also understand and assess that what is the count of bots that I need to use if I want to meet the timelines. Introduction of tools, various tools and techniques, to integrate the ERPs, and manpower. It reduces the dependence on the manpower, and hence the legacy issues of rotation, or maybe the change of the team, or report drafting, different way of report drafting kind of get away. So why robotic audit is the new normal? So it actually automates end-to-end entire process, right from data extraction to cleansing, transaction testing and analytics, information sharing and reporting. We will touch upon all these elements in the next slide in details. It is cognitive and learning capabilities, capable of learning over the time. It can take an autonomous decision making also based on certain rules that you define, and it will enhance the human presence. The next is the user experience and last mile integration. It actually gives you an experience. The automation will give you a best experience of how your transaction is moving from one point to another point. Integration with various platforms. So it can also integrate with the third-party applications also. When I say third party, means for payroll processing, you may have a service level agreement with an outsourced partner, right? So I remember Dinesh, she was talking about the TPRM as well. So this is again very much important from that perspective, third party risk management. How do we integrate our risk assessment or our internal audit in their platform? The next is eliminate and minimize human interventions. And last is ease of monitoring and measurable ROI. So this is again we will discuss in detail. When I talk about ROI, it's time to time. So a single we as a human, we work 8 hours a day, but a bot actually runs for 24 hours 365 days, right? So it definitely gives you an ROI. Some of the benefits of automation in audit I have tried to list down here. While there will be some overlapping, but I will try to cover all of them. It reduces the operating cost, and hence the processing cost as well. Increase the productivity and deliver better and faster. Increased security by minimizing manual intervention. Improves compliance and reporting skills. Perform quick data analytics and provide accurate results. Hire, train, and deploy workplace that is agile and flexible to business needs, and save time by automating repetitive tasks. Okay, so internal audit as is process. So this explains that what is the percentage of time as an internal auditor that we give to a particular process review or particular internal audit. 8%, while most of you will agree, but there might be certain changes, certain deviations to what percentage that I've mentioned, and it is not accurate. Approximately, I've mentioned 8%. According to me, a team try to review the last year's report, discuss with the stakeholders to gain the process understanding, and then prepare the audit plan. The second is data extraction, collation, and cleansing. 10% of the time they spent on extracting from the ERP systems and cleaning the data, and then make ready for the audit execution. The sample selection, emails, communication to the process owners, it takes about 12%. When I'm saying sample selection here, it is purely based on the data analytics. The third, which is the most important, where we will have a deep dive, the transaction testing, exception reporting, mail communication with the process owners. That's where there is a possibility of automation. So if you see the data analytics and checking the system configuration, we consider there high possibility of automating that activity. Vouching and verification of sample transactions, medium possibility. The only reason is that if you do not have a soft copies of the samples documents, and if you have that physical form and it is not standardized, and with the use of OCR also, if the same cannot be digitized, it becomes very much difficult to kind of read that and do the sampling, to do the testing of that. And the last is physical verification of assets and inventory, which we consider as low. The only reason is that with the use of so camera, you can do that, but it is not turned out to be effective based on our experience. While there are certain companies which are making certain solutions through which the physical verification of assets and inventory will also be automated through the use of drones. Yeah. Then you have management responses. You spend 15%, and on 50% on 15% on draft reports and dashboards, and final 5% on the issuing the final report along with the audit committee. Right. So here the highlight is that 35% of the time that you spend on transaction testing, exception reporting, and email communicating with the process node, that can be automated. Right. Now this is the broad activity. So this a robotic audit will kind of do while doing the testing. So I'm just picking up from the earlier slide how the testing will happen. So the robot will actually extract the data. It will be through the system directly. So what you have to do is just give a username and password once, and at a periodic basis the bot will log into using your credential and extract the data. They will clean the data, perform their analysis, and perform the exception reporting, right? So, and they will draft the report in a standard format. There will be template that gets created, and the drafting will happen in the same template, and the reporting will happen. Now the draft report and the communication happen to all the process owners, or the process owner, or maybe the HODs, or to the board directly. But generally it happens to the process owners before having the management responses, the same is not communicated. There is another capability which is missing here, is that the management responses also for a typical transactions, where it uses a machine learning, where the bots already knows that these are certain observations that it had kind of highlighted in past also. Based on that machine learning, either the bot will not kind of raise that as an exception, or they know that what was the management response, and they will draft the management response by themselves and submit the report. The engagement can happen as a co-source or outsource, complete outsource, or it can happen in-house by the in-house internal team as well, or globally. Right. So this is again a very interesting thing where the bot can create a library of their own. Now I actually, there are 4 types of libraries that I've mentioned. One is the industry or company insight library, which is used by the bot to test the analysis. The second is the exception library. So once you have implemented the robotic audit and there are transaction testing happening on a periodical basis, the exceptions get recorded and the library gets created, right? So if you want to look at what was the exception reporting in the month of March 2021, so you will actually have the library and you can go and see that. So you do not have to keep a record separately. And likewise, there is observation and report library as well. The reports are also stored, and transaction testing library as well. Now, transaction testing library, I will call it as TTL, is nothing but what are the analytics or the scripts that are defined, based on which the robot will start performing. Yeah. So here, the entire capability I have mentioned, the bot can read the documents. It can have it can be a PDF document, it could be a Word, Excel, or even if it is a physical form, it can scan the document, using the OCR. Data extraction and entry, I just explained. It can store the documents. It can have a trail as well. It can perform data analysis. It can have a transaction testing also done, and it can also give you the evidences that it has tested. The reconciliation can be done using the bots. It can also give, it can also follow a if and then decision, and that completely depends upon the rules that we have defined in the bot. It connects the system through APIs or external portals. It can draft bots. It can draft reports, and it can email the reports as well. There are three types of bots available in the market, which is, one is basic process automation. The second is enhanced process automations, where if you see it can be used when there is a high volume. In the first case, the basic one, they are manual in nature, transactional and repeatable, and the last one is the cognitive automations. That is for the proactive control testing, or maybe it can give you some alerts, as I explained in the earlier slide, that how your bots can actually predict whether you will have, or the probability of happening certain risk materializing, or maybe certain fraud happening in a particular area. Right. Now, the next is, how do you implement the robotic audit? So first step is understand the process. Understand the process. It's a complete understanding of end-to-end transactions of a particular company. Understand the roles and responsibility of different individuals who are responsible, who are the process owners of that particular process. Understand the function level KPIs and KRAs. Based on that, we have an integrated team of industry SMEs, which is a business SMEs, which consists of chartered accountants, engineers, finance MBAs, or any finance guy. And then there is a team of development team, which is actually a technical team, IT team, which develops the bots. Now there is a continuous deliberations between these two teams. The industry SMEs will give you will give the rules to the development team. The development team, based on that, create a structure and the framework around how the audit of that particular process will happen, based on the process understanding, or based on the business understanding. Once this deliberation between these two teams, which is integrated, is done, then there'll be a library development. So I just explained that transaction testing scenarios will be created. That what are the scenarios that a particular to be tested in a particular process or sub process, or maybe at an activity level as well. So, and then they develop so there are two ways to look at it. One is that transaction testing scenarios are already developed by the in-house team, or we can or the internal audit team can develop their own, right? And based on that, the library will be developed. The next step is the management approval and UAT, right? So the same infrastructure, the same framework, and the library that is developed in the third stage will be put up for the management for approval. The same will be approved by the management. There will be a user acceptance testing that will happen, and it will happen using a lot of scenarios. When the user acceptance testing is done, there will be a go live and the handover. Handover is very much key, very much important, because most of the companies do not have a robotic team in house, right? And they rely on the consultants. So if the handover of the bots, if the handover process is not done properly, the in-house team will not be able to kind of do the justice, or maybe kind of respond to certain queries, or respond to certain certain issues, right? So this is very much important. The SOP of the SOP is drafted. There is a training that happens, and the final sign off is given. And the last is the maintenance activity. I will term it as L1 or L2 on-site or off-site support that generally we give to our clients, right? And that includes at a design level and and a transaction level. Even if there are any issues, we handle that. So with that we come to the third section, which is a smart and digital internal audit. Yeah, so I was just mentioning at the start of the session that why we call this as a smart. The smart because if you can see here in the picture, it uses all the teams of multi-dimensional, multi-skills team that we use for internal audit. And that is something that is the ask of many companies, large companies now, because earlier I think we used to do all the audits with the use of one team, barring I don't recollect. I think IT and cybersecurity is one where you used to kind of onboard another team to do the ITGC or maybe information systems audit, because that is required in most of the cases by the RBI, that needs to be done by a certain empaneled or maybe a CISA certified a team, right? In the smart and digital internal audit, we use the audit happens using the analytic tool, right? And it is a focused audit. The we perform the data analytics, pick up the exceptions, and we get into the details of it. The eye of forensic, which we will explain, which I will explain in the next slide. We integrate the internal audit with IFC and cybersecurity review. We onboard operational team as well. So I just gave an example of real estate company where we generally have our civil engineers on board. They are also an integrated or integrate part of the internal audit team, which do the techno commercials audit. The statutory compliance, where we kind of use lawyers and the company secretaries to kind of comment on the compliance and the secretarial part of it. And the risk and resilience, because it's very much important to kind of internal audit talks with the enterprise risk management, right? So if you have an enterprise risk management, the risk assessment done by them, if we are not able to cover in the internal audit, or vice versa. So in internal audit, you may come up with certain risks which are not highlighted or which is not getting addressed with the enterprise risk management. So they both should talk to each other and kind of update their risk assessment, and or else update the internal audit coverage. Yeah, so this is some few examples where we review the internal audit with an eye of forensic. The first is the procurement. I'll just quickly give an example while you all can read on the screen certain examples that I have tried to give here. So first example is that so I'm not trying to say that we should have a forensic team in the internal audit, while that is the best situation to have in. But even if you do not have a forensic team, but a team members who are on the job, internal audit team, they should have an eye of forensic. I'll just give you a very simple example. The one vendor giving a different quotation, the template of quotations. So in the month of May, it had a template in which the quotation was provided. And in the month of May, if the template was different, okay, so the person who is doing the execution, they should actually flag it off that why the templates are used, right? Similarly, if the invoices are coming from two different people, okay, or rather I would continue the same example of quotations, okay. Sometimes what happens, and this is the personal experience that I've had, is that there were two different quotations from two different people, okay. Everything is completely different. In the bottom of the quotation, the mobile numbers mentioned was same, the name were different, mobile numbers were same, right? So this is this is the detail that I'm talking about, that we as an internal auditor should also have an eye of forensic. right? The second example I will give in the logistic review is that, we most of the time what happens is that when we review the procurement of basically a contractor to do the logistic review, we only say that, okay, this is a per kilometer rate that is given, and this is a L1, and we select it, and based on that we say that, okay, absolute the things are correct, L1 is selected, and there is no excess payment. Now, based on my experience, what I have noticed is that that is not enough, because, for example, I will give you an example of a steel manufacturing company. It was a 3 kilometer stretch, so 3 kilometer stretch within the plant. So all the employees used to be picked up from a plant, so at the gate of the plant, and they should be kind of dropped to the respective plant. Now, for that, they had hired a logistic partner, right? And there were different rates mentioned. There were quotations. I reviewed the quotations. Okay, I picked up L1 and I said, okay, correct. But then I get into the details. Okay, that give me the invoices. I check the invoices. The cars that they have used, they were made 15 years ago. Okay, if you look at the depreciation and the commitment that the L2 has given to use the car which are made 5 years ago, right? So if you consider the depreciation, then the rate L1 is given is actually more, right? So this is one check that we did. The second check is that you go and look at the registrations of the cars used, okay, and then map it to the employees PAN, and we did that, and we found a couple of cases as well, right? So this is an eye of forensic that I'm talking about. I can keep giving an example in the sales and marketing as well. We had a review of one ad expense of a large FMCG company, right? So so when we're reviewing the advertisement expenditure, so what happens is that they will give you all the photographs. Okay, we have posted this, we have posted here, advertisement is in, absolutely fine. But have you ever gone and checked whether it actually exists, whether the advertisement is actually live there? Because what happens is that those photographs can be edited and can be presented, right? So this is the eye of forensic that we are talking about. In human resource, very simple, you check for the basically a misrepresentation of education qualification that generally gets covered as a part of the background verification, or the ghost employees, right? In inventory management, again, and I can give you another example, wherein again a steel manufacturing company had it was actually an aluminum manufacturing company. It had a certain level of alumina, and if you see that how inventory is checked with a dip measurement, you have certain coordinates created, right? And based on that, the volume is arrived, and then you on a monthly basis, you book that what is the inventory of that particular stock, right? Alumina. Now, what had happened, the person who was responsible for the inventory management, he found that there were certain issues. Okay, there were certain issues with the inventory. There was about 2000 metric tons of inventory which was missing. Now, to cover his stance, what he started to do, because he was in the control of the coordinates, so there was a third party report which used to come to him in an editable format. Okay, so what he used to do, he used to edit the coordinates, he used to match the volume of the inventory of alumina and share with the internal auditors. Okay, now what control we should have as an internal auditor is that wherever there are third parties involved, the internal auditor should get direct report from the third party and not through anybody else, right? So this is the eye of forensic that I am talking about here. I'll move to the next slide. Yeah. The 4 pillars of compliance. So the entire compliance review will revolve around the statutory compliances that depends upon the industry that the company is into. Largely the corporate and commercial compliance will remain same. Companies Act, SEBI laws. If it is insurance, then IRDA. If it is NBFCs, then maybe NBFC, then RBI, and all of the SAB compliances. Financial laws, HR, labor, and we actually deploy all the subject matter experts for all these compliances check. The financial reporting on the left hand side, IFC or internal controls over financial reporting, SOX for US listed, JSOX for Japanese listed companies, clause 49 or IFCs, IIS or US GAAP, international financial reporting, how the controls are designed to ensure that we are complied with all these acts is something that we check. On the upper left, we have contractual terms that we review the compliances to service level agreements. What are the service level agreements that we have? Whether are we complied? Whether there are any penalties that should be levied if the SLAs are not adhered? What are the internal controls based on which they ensure that the service level agreements are adhered? Is something that we check. On the top right, we have policies and procedures. Review the code of conduct policies, delegation of authorities, segregation of duty, which is missing here, POSH policies, the functional level standard operating procedures, and all of that. So that gets covered as a part of the compliance. Yeah. So we talked in the initial first slide where I mentioned about the smart and digital internal audit. We mentioned that we use analytics as a base to kind of arrive at an exceptions. So here there are different forms of techniques, I would say, or maybe tools available that we use for doing the various types of analytics. NLP, which is natural language processing. Which scans through the large volumes of documents such as contract, loan records, or unstructured document, to provide you the critical information. And it is combined with other AI and ML and DL, kind of techniques to classify the documents according to the type and extract certain relevant information, which is important for an internal auditor to look into. The second is using ML to identify the patterns. So this is the most important these days, identifying the pattern. I think we must be using, most of the people now using how to identify the the patterns of the stock, right? The way the market is going. I think everybody is looking at that, when the stock will fall. I mean, when the market will fall. So similarly, I think here also what ML does is, machine learning does is identifying the patterns, and based on that, it keeps learning based on the patterns of the transactions, and it gives you a certain exceptions. On the right, you see identify fraud-prone areas. This is largely happens when you have defined certain fraud-prone areas. Certain rules are defined, which will give you a trigger or maybe certain alerts, based on which you will kind of either escalate it or maybe kind of report it to the actual incident. And the last is AI-driven business fragmentation. It tracks the outcomes in each risk-prone areas to identify gaps in compliance, quality, or other areas. So these are all tools that we have, generally used by our data analytics team. So as I said, that we integrate all the team members into one, and then the entire team is kind of works on an internal audit project. Now, this is a key part, which I wanted to kind of discuss again in detail, is that the reporting the outcome is the most important thing, because sometimes what happens is that we review a lot of things, but it does not get reported, or maybe the perspective is not given. Now, if you see, generally it is observation, then implication, and the recommendation with agreed action plans. Now, identifying the business impact is very much important, because if you do not give the business impact, financial impact, it has no relevance these days. While at a design level, you may give certain recommendation, but if it is not coupled with certain instances to show the financial exposure, now that financial exposure not necessary that the event has happened, or maybe it's a rare event, that is also fine, but it has to have certain financial impact. If this particular risk materializes, what is the potential loss that can happen to the company? Now here we talked about smart and digital and integrated way of working. So again, if you see, we cover the IFC framework as well as a part of this IFC and risk management also. So we actually give what are the key action plan for the company which is emerging out of this observations, whether you need to develop SOP, you need to update SOP, or entity level, what are the controls that you want to implement, or what are the controls that you want to implement at a process level, and what is the operating effectiveness of this control. You may have certain controls at a process level and entity level, but whether they are operating effective or not. So we comment on these perspectives as well. And these days this is very much important, and we have actually designed this based on certain feedbacks or maybe certain inputs given by our certain key clients, that they want to highlight the automation opportunity. They want to know that what is the automation needed in the company. Yeah. So next is evolving in internal audit to align with emerging business requirement. This is mainly basically which this highlights that what are the issues, the endemic that we are going through, that what are the key risks or important risks that one should cover as a part of the internal audit. The cash flow, the most important thing. I think everybody has started to realize the importance of cash flow, and hence the review of the cash flow is the most important thing. The cyber related risks, which my colleague, my friend just mentioned, Dinesh ji. Void and remote access. Void is nothing but bring your own device. Now, because there are companies which gives you the liberty to kind of use your own system. That is where there are many challenges that are happening. There are many frauds that are happening. There are risks that are prevailing. I'll just give you an example of if there are participants who are from the BFSI segment, they will be able to relate it more. So if you are into asset management companies like mutual fund, there is a SEBI circular that all the deals needs to be recorded. The transaction needs to be recorded, and all the calls, the landline call needs to be recorded. There are no mobile access in the dealing rooms, right? Now think about it, that how SEBI would have kind of tackled the situation. Because when we had the situations last year, okay, I had spoken to a couple of my AMC friends, who are in the risk management team, and they also mentioned they are facing a lot of challenge. Few days they could not trade, they could not make any transactions. Okay, so we as an internal auditor, we should also look at that. If now all the transactions are happening at house or working from anywhere, so how those controls are mitigated now? Because earlier SEBI had mentioned that all the trades needs to be recorded, mobiles are not around, there are certain guidelines available on that, right? The next is forex and treasury. There has been a lot of fluctuations in the forex rate, so it becomes very much important. The SOPs, because there will be a lot of processes which would have changed because of the pandemic. There would be a lot of digitization that would have happened, that have triggered the SOPs to change. The third is that so SOPs would have designed couple of years back, and nobody had kind of thought of such a black swan, right, kind of an event. So obviously your SOP was not geared up to kind of accept these deviations. So how these deviations were managed by the respective process owners or maybe the organization is something that we need to look at. The pricing, same like for forex and treasury. Safety of people, which is important. How people are kind of complying with the state level, kind of guidelines that we are having. How they are taking care of that. Business environment, there is a business impact, external and internal, at an organization level, how it is impacted. Compliance, we just talked about, and fraud risk also we talked about. Sorry. The next is methodology for remote internal audit. So if you see, in the bottom, I've just tried to use certain, legends. What does this mean? So there are system workflows in ERP, email communication, audio calls, WebEx, or maybe certain other apps that we use. Then there are data extensions. So what I'm trying to say here is that, with the change in the way we work, there is a large amount of work that can happen off-site. There's no need to go on site for a large amount of work. You can schedule meeting, you can schedule, basically a process reviews. You can have audit plan, which can be done on email. The kickoff meeting can happen over WebEx. You can have a video call or maybe an audio call to share the information or prepare a detailed work plan. You can have a confirmation which can happen on email or a WebEx, or similarly the data analytics can happen on the system. The data can be provided over various methods. So large. What I'm trying to say is that large amount of work, over this an engagement life cycle that we are seeing here can happen off-site. So this is a coverage of internal audit, with the use of remote internal audit methodology. So we have bifurcated this entire business value chain into 3 strategic, core, and operational processes, and then support functions. I believe most of you will agree that we generally do not review the strategic level as a part of the internal audit, while in many cases we do it as per the scope of work. But largely it is seen that we cover support in the core functions review, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that, that product or customer order, or maybe operations, taxation, HR and payroll, admin expenses, that can be performed remotely. And the circle with red color, you can see there are very high priority COVID environment. We can review this: accounts and finance, procurement to pay, or maybe sales and dispatch, sales and safety, IT. These are the highly prone risk areas during the COVID environment, and that can be done remotely. Okay, now there are certain areas, audit areas of future that I have tried to list down. The first is ESG. I think most of the people would be knowing now environmental, social, governance. What is it? I think most of the companies have started to adopt ESG, and that is the reason I think most of the companies are going for a green power or green energy. We see a lot of electronic vehicles also picking up. So how do we do the audit of ESG is something we need to look at. There are regulatories. I think there are global standards as well around the ESG. The SEBI also had come up with certain reporting on the ESG for certain specified list of companies, right? So we need to understand what are the internal controls around the ESGs. The culture audit, which is important. I think because the way we are working now remotely, there is no a human touch, or maybe a restricted touch, I would say. If there are organizations which has an alternate day at office. So how do we tackle that? What is the turnover, the employee turnover in the organizations, and what are the steps that basically a company has taken to mitigate those risks? The risk management, this is again very much important, and let me tell you that the risk management has picked up so well since in last 1 year. We as a consultant are getting a lot of inquiries around that. Why it is important? Because most of the companies want to reassess the risk assessment which was done few years back, right? Many companies did not even kind of implement the BCP and DRP. It was just on the piece of paper, and we all know that, right? So people want to kind of know that what are their new risks in the organization. A lot of companies has gone for a digitization. There are certain emerging risks. People want to now do a reassessment of the entire entity enterprise-wide risk assessment. Data privacy, I will not touch upon more because Dinesh has already mentioned. Social media review, again, how you want to tackle that social media. Social media is not yet widely talked about as far as internal audit is concerned. So I would say that social media is going to be a very much important because the way I think people are socializing because people are at home. So this will pick up as an audit area. Compliance we just mentioned. Cybersecurity we mentioned. Audit of automated processes, I think this is important. I will just touch upon one minute here. So what we mean by audit of automated process. Now we talked about the automated process, right? Dinesh, you also mentioned about the configuration testing, right? So when we say audit of automated process, it revolves around whether the configurations were reviewed, whether the configurations were tested, once the configuration was done, whether there are any issues around it, whether the output that was expected has been, whether they have achieved or not, and last but not the least, the ROI on the investment, return on investment. Of course, ROU is something that we learned today. We all learned today. Even I have also learned today. So I will include ROU as well as a part of this. And last is auditing strategy. So I would say that people, the effectiveness of the audit. What is the effectiveness of audit is something that we need to kind of focus on. While many companies will have either in-house audit or maybe the external team doing the audit, but what is their auditing strategy? I think RBI also come up with a risk-based internal audit, right? So that is nothing but the auditing strategy, right? The how the risk assessment will be done before starting the internal audit is something that is important. So I think people need to understand their internal audit strategy, how effective it is, how the observations are drafted, what is the sampling strategy that is used, whether we are looking only at the design level or transactions, or we are not looking at designing at all. What is the strategy around it? These are certain illustrative POCs, proof of concepts, I would say, but I don't think so it will run here. So maybe I will share this presentation. So that is it. I would be happy to kind of answer any questions you may have.
If any question comes
अपने पास कोई क्वेश्चन आए हैं?
हाँ सर, there are sir.
yeah,
There are sir.
I think everybody's was totally clear about what you want, what you have presented today. So everybody is happy about what you have given in the slides.
Sure.
Yeah, Murtuza, I think your closing remarks and then we'll give vote of thanks. I think there is no question.
So maybe one or two questions from my side.
Yeah.
Dharmesh, for a normal small practicing chartered accountant, what could be a data analytics tool that can be used, or like any solution software that you know of? And the second one is like on for maintaining the audit documentation, anything that you know of and you can talk about that.
Sure. So I think there are many.
There's one question, Murtuza, if you can take up this.
So I will
So,
answer.
Can I read?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for
Dharmesh bhai, what is the difference between audit and automated process and SOX and IFC review?
all right. So I will answer that first. So when we say audit of automated process, uh, so when we say audit of automated process is nothing but the configuration testing. Uh, so there are certain documents like BRD documents that we prepare called business requirement document. So all these BRD documents, against that we review that the automation is done as per the requirement or not. What are the risks emerging out of that automation? The ROI that we had expected, or the ROI that we had expected, or the what do you say, or the benefit that we had expected are achieved or not. And if there are any incidences reported, while the process was automated, that get reported. And SOX and IFC is completely different. So when I say SOX, it's a review of financial controls, internal controls over financial reporting, I would say. And IFC, though it is internal financial control plus the operational reviews. In that, what we do is test the controls, whether it is automated or not automated, manual controls. So when I talk about SOX, it covers the automated and non-automated controls both.
so just
The
to
second,
add to what Dharmesh said, Dharmesh, allow me only a few seconds. So, any organization listed on US stock exchanges, SOX is required, and for Indian companies, certain categories of the Companies Act, it is defined internal financial control, and here normally we look at those risk and controls which will have a impact on the financial reporting. So, if the financial statement is going to go wrong because of it, then you will have to cover those. Non-financial, those which are not impacting the like which does not have a financial impact, the operational control you will not cover. And when you look at IFC or SOX, then like we talk about entity level controls, we talk about the general risk and controls, and we also talk about the IT risk and controls. Okay. So that is statutory requirement, different thing, and mostly done by the statute. The statutory auditor will in any case have to do because they need to report. And before that, the management will have to do the in-house internal documentation and testing. And very well explained by Dharmesh on the automated processes. Wherever anything is automated in a computer system, like say if you configured your whole procure to pay process, procure purchase requisition, who can raise, and there is a delegation of authority matrix, and say my limit is of raising up to 5 lakh rupees. So then, like whether that control is working or not, whether I can raise a 5 lakh 5,000 or not. That way, if there is a maker checker control, assuming my reporting manager is Ketan, and then like once I raise a purchase requisition, it should go to Ketan Sayya for approval whether it is going or not. These are type of things which are configured into the software. You need to do a check whether they are working. That is called as an audit of automated process. So over to you again, Dharmesh. Second question.
yeah. The second question is obviously the answer is yes, but let us listen to Dharmesh whether an IS auditor or the control tester should be a cyber security expert.
That's correct. There is no what do you say, qualification for a cyber security expert. I mean, so I've seen, based on my experience in IS auditor. So we also have a team of cyber security which is of 50-60 people, and they have been doing IS auditor, IS audit, and at the same time they are in cyber security expert as well.
So see, actually, again, I would also add here, okay, like as a normal auditor, or if we are a finance background, we look at the controls and the risk in a procure to pay, order to cash, fixed asset process, etc. But of course, like we also look at how the systems are working, and in a way, we are an IS auditor. And even like if you want to do a qualification like a DISA, Diploma in Information Systems Audit from ICI, or a CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, you could still do some of the ITGC testing, etc. But when you talk about high-end cyber security, like say a vulnerability assessment or penetration testing, maybe as a normal auditor you will not be able to do. And there are experts who do ethical hacking of websites. Okay, and for that additional skill set or additional qualification will be required. And there are CIA, SSP, there are CISM, and then again like ethical hacking courses. So you may keep on going on doing. and you can keep on getting higher up on the chain, and then again the rate per hour also increases. So I would say depends on where you want to go and make your career. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
the third question, of course, since you are from this space of banking audit, is asked on the LFAR. Like many people copy LFAR from the previous year, and then commenting upon the PNB.
Maybe Ketan Bhai is the best one to answer. Ketan and
Yes,
Rajesh.
yes, Ketan, yeah, Ketan is the best answer.
I think I and Dharmesh both do not do bank audit. So Ketan Bhai, over to you. Whether copy
Ketan
paste
is,
is good
yes.
or bad.
So first of all, in my talk, I always say that don't look at previous year's LFAR until you complete your LFAR. And PNB, of course, we all know what was in PNB. It was not copy pasting of LFAR. Of course, the transactions were out of the books. Basically, to look at those systems, not to look at those systems. So I think that's that's the in short the answer. The next question is: can the investment in RPA or automation in audit to be justified in India, where we have huge supply of cheap non-qualified audit resources for the routine audit processes? So
So
here is
Ketan
the
Bhai,
question
Ketan
of a
Bhai,
small firm.
Ketan Bhai, 4, 5, and 6 all are almost the same, and we can answer together. So let Dharmesh go first, and then I'll add up whatever.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Dharmesh.
So basically, the question is trying to say that when you have you're a smaller firm, how will you afford huge expenditure basically,
True.
and how will you justify the cost versus income? So
Sure.
always you have this situation that अभी लाखों का खर्चा करूं कैसे मैं?
करते हैं, उसका
So
भी आंसर
I
देते हैं.
think
Let Dharmesh go first.
I'll respond this. I'll respond this. Okay. So whether you want to go for an RPA or or you do not want to go RP for an RPA, the assessment does not only happen based on the investment, but also happen on the type of processes that you have. If you have the processes which are manual in nature, you do not necessarily go for an investment in RPA because it is going to be a failure, even if you are a big organization. So first is that thumb rule is that you need to first look at the processes in your organization. The second is that as far as investment is concerned, there are many players out in the market. There are global players like Automation Anywhere. There are global players like UiPath, and there are many players like who have emerged from India, which can give you a similar nature of a quality at a cheaper rate as well. You may consider that as well. Now the second part of your question is that we have a huge supply of cheap non-qualified audit resources for routine audit procedures. Now here we are not saying that there will be manpowers or the intern auditors which will be replaced by an automation, and it's a myth. I think most of the people has when they talk about automation and RPA. So all these people, they will be kind of pulled from the routine mundane work, and they will be a part of the strategy team. They will be doing or maybe put into a certain different activity, strategizing how the robots will perform. Because eventually, what board does is what we are told.
Correct.
So, Dharmesh, let me add to what you said. Now, see, like assuming if I'll because we have time on hand, I'll take a little longer answer.
Sure.
See, assuming if you're doing a procure to pay process, and in a procure to pay, like if you want to check whether the purchase requisition date is first or the purchase order is later, I think you can do it in Excel. Whether a PO quantity or a GRN quantity exceeds the PO quantity, you can again do it in Excel. Okay. But there are certain things which will, if you want to compare rates of 3 vendors supplying the same raw material, maybe you can even do that comparison using an Excel. So you can start with an Excel. Okay.
Correct.
The second, I would say, if you don't if the data is much larger and you cannot use Excel, then you can like use SQL type of a database solution and a Python type
Idea.
of a querying type of a thing. You can write queries using Python and you can use an SQL and you can do the work. Okay. And assuming you are someone on the question number 5 is also talking about ACL or IDEA, let me tell you today the Casper Canada, ICI has tied up with Casper Canada for the IDEA license, and it is available with your firm registration number for 50,000 plus GST in the first year, one time. And then every year the renewal fees is 10,000 plus GST. So 10,000 rupees per year is not like a big amount. And that too, you can do multiple clans, multiple queries, and you can keep on using it for statutory audit, inter audit, and everything. So I think you can still go for that. And it comes with a lot of videos. It comes with a lot of automated queries, and you can write the queries on your own if you learn. Okay. And at WIRC, we also did like last year a program where we charge only 500 rupees. And in 500 rupees, IDEA team did a 1-day presentation and with lot of data hands-on training. And they also gave a 30-day demo, this thing which was downloaded on each one's laptop and computer. So you register and the program is downloaded free of cost, the demo version. You can start using it on your data and writing queries, etc. Then a 1-day session happens, and then after that again you have some days to use it, etc. That way. So that is one. Coming to the other one, and like see at WRC right now we are doing a IT program, a full-fledged long duration IT course. Part 1, 60 hours. We are teaching SQL and Python, and that is for as low as 9,000 rupees. And you also get a certificate. Part 2 is like Power BI and Tableau. So like whatever you do queries, how do you present by way of graph, charts, etc. Audit committee presentation, and that is for 5,000 rupees, 40 hours. And part 3 is like RPA and using a UiPath automation anywhere. How do you write the queries? And RPA, you can use the RPA tool, the bots for doing bank reconciliation, payroll processing, claim processing, invoice processing, either using RPA or OCR. So we're going to teach you RPA and OCR and all of those, where you can do consulting assignments for your clients and help them in implementing or digitalization. Now, if you're getting 150 hours along with certificate in 3 parts for as low as 22,000, which you go outside, it will be at least 1 lakh rupees, nothing less than that. So you can attend those, and once you attend this course, and with a lot of data which has been given to you, and you are doing coding yourself, and it is on Saturday evening 6 to 8, and Friday evening 6 to 8, Saturday, Sunday 10 to 1. And after that also you get homework. You will have to go home and again do coding and come back next week. That way. So if you spend that much hour and if you pick it up, I'm sure you can do coding yourself. You don't need to buy an IDEA or ACL also. Okay. And there are a lot of these coding and viewing solutions which are available free of cost. They're open source. A closed source, you need to buy a license. Open source, you don't need to buy a license. That is available free of cost and you can use it. I'll stop in a minute. I'll give one more example and I'll stop in a minute. So, one large assignment which we did right now. So, assuming your like there is a company called an ICICI Prudential. Okay. ICICI Prudential will have an office in Kandivali, Borivali, Andheri, Bira Road, everywhere. Thana, Dombili, right? And everywhere there will be an employee. So, they will have lakhs of employees. Now, as an organization, they wanted to check whether their employees have vaccinated or not. First dose complete, second dose complete, which action, when is the vaccine due? Because there will be some societies building complexes which will not allow a person inside if they're not vaccinated. And again, human resource is very big for the organization. So what we did is we said, okay, like whether we can implement an automated solution for you, whether it is on-site or off-site. Now, when you say on-site, on your server, your computer, we will do the coding. What we need only 2 things. One, a database solution, so buy a license, SQL license, 1 license, and maybe RPA using an automation anywhere. Okay, so buy 1 license or automation anywhere. Now, create a unique mail ID, and that mail ID will be like Dharmesh, like XYZ at the rate vaccination at the rate ICIprudential.com. Now, Dharmesh sends his vaccination certificate. Rajesh sends it. Ketan sends his. Murtuza sends it. The moment a mail comes with the certificate, the bot on its own opens the document, reads it, picks up the information, goes and plots it into the database solution. And at every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a dashboard is available on a mobile or a mail to people, and they will know which location, which department, how many male and female, how many people have done first dose, how many have got second dose, and when is the second dose due if they're taken only first, and whether it is Covaxin or Covishield. So no one needs to open those PDF and start punching into Excel. So if that work was being done by 5 people, now it can be done by a bot automatically. Now I'll answer the last question. In anything, if you look at a Vodafone Shared Service Center in Ahmedabad, or if you look at an Adani Shared Service Center in Ahmedabad, bank reconciliation for so many countries, so many organizations, thousands of bank accounts. If 50 people was doing a bank reco, now with a bot, you will need only 3 people, because the bot will do the bank reconciliation automatically. And an 800 line item, if a human being for an 800 line item needs 1.5 day, a bot needs 58 seconds. Okay. So the bot will keep on doing, and 24 hours, one after another, it will keep on doing the bank reco. The reco will be ready. Then the person will have to apply the mind to see, check deposited but not cleared, or check issued but not presented, and whether they are required to pass a reversal entry or X or Y. And those, like what do you say, the brainy work will have to be done by the person, and the routine work will be done by the bot. And of course, when you compare the cost of the bot and the coding, it will be much cheaper than the salary of a human being. And but I will again end with saying that what Dharmesh mentioned, that the bot or technology is not going to replace us. We'll have to apply our mind. We'll have to say what to pick up and what to compare with what. So we'll have to upgrade ourselves, or reskill ourselves, or upskill ourselves. That is what I would say. So I think 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, sorry.
Murtuza and Dharmesh, what is the expenditure allocation on IT? I'm again asking from a small and medium-sized practitioner's point of view. In terms of percentage, do I allocate 10% of my income, 20% of? I mean, how the big firms are doing? I mean, if you can throw some light, both of you.
See, to my mind, for firms like us, there is no expenditure allocation, because the moment a client approached with a problem statement that I want to do this COVID vaccination automation, I did it for them, and I charged the fees for them. Okay. Now, for my client, I said, if you got 1 lakh employees, I'll charge you only 100 rupees, and 100 rupees into 1 lakh employees, 1 crore. Either you pay me that, or you pay me a fee of 3 lakh rupees, and I'll buy 2 licenses, one SQL, one automation anywhere, and do the coding and give it to you. And I coded and gave it to him, and in 3 lakhs also I made money. And once the coding was done, then I prepared a good mail, and I started sending it to so many, talking to other clients, and everyone started coming in. And if I got 50 clients, and if I do the similar work for them, and even if I make a 50 lakh rupees or 1 crore rupees in a year, that is like nothing. So I have not invested. And the same thing I can use for my employees free of cost. Okay. So I am saying, see, ultimately,
You have to use the
but
brain.
but even if you are a CA firm, and assuming your turnover is 30 lakh rupees in a year or 50 lakh rupees in a year, I am saying an ACL type of a thing which is only 50,000, and then going forward 10,000 rupees, and lot of automation, or like sample selection of sample, testing of sample, and writing queries, and getting to know where to audit, what are the exceptions, that can be done easily. So it is not even 10%, Ketan bhai. It is much lesser, much lesser.
Any
I
view of Dharmesh?
Sorry, Dharmesh, sorry.
No, I agree with you. I mean, so it depends whether, the, what do you say, the investment in the technology, whether it is generating income or not. So while Murtuza just mentioned that which generates the income, so for that the matter of investment is very less. In companies which are not tech savvy companies, for which they never had any investment, or they do not want to kind of invest in the technology, and it's not a revenue generating income for them. For them also, it will not be more than 5%, or maybe, and that will happen, exceptional years, maybe this year and the next year, and it will gradually slow down, unless there is another certain emerging technology comes in and they want to invest in.
So,
Fair.
Ketan bhai,
Over to you, Murtuza, for your closing remarks.
Ketan bhai, before I give the closing remarks, I think that we'll allow Rajesh bhai to do a formal vote of thanks and
Yeah,
closing
yeah,
remarks.
absolutely.
But before that, I will add only one more thing, Ketan bhai. See, as an internoid assignment for one client, I started writing queries for procure to pay. Okay. Okay, have they made payment on after 8 in the evening, because the factory warehouses close at 8? Have they made payment on a Saturday or a Sunday? Okay. Then I tried to look at, if a particular raw material and there are multiple vendors, how much spend with one vendor, how many transactions more than 50 lakhs, how many payment to the same vendor on the same day. Now once I have written all those queries for one client, then I can use it for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth client. I don't need to apply my mind. Okay. Now what happens is, a client may be using an SAP or Oracle or Tally. I need to identify that for running this query, what data I want. Now, once the data set is also defined, then irrespective of the software that the client is using, get the data set, run the query. Now, from doing this for my clients, all of a sudden I become a service provider. And I say I will give analytics as a service. And some firms are doing it. Huh? They say I have got the queries ready. I got a scripted. You send your data to me or put it on a common drive. I'll pick up the data. I'll run the queries, give you the exception report, and for running each query, I'll charge you 10,000 or 20,000 rupees.
My God.
So you created queries for yourself. Now you are providing service of running the queries and giving the exception report. So I'm saying
Yes.
we'll have to find out what is happening in the world, what are the services from where the revenue is coming, and we'll have to move towards those revenue streams. So nothing is cost. Everything gets converted into revenue.
True, it's
Can I
just
just add? I just wanted to add something for 1 minute, if you don't mind.
Yes,
For I think couple of decades, I was working in the category of small or medium scale practitioner, and I think today, as far as the small and medium scale practitioner is concerned, to answer Ketan bhai's question, I think it's a question of survival. If you don't look at technology, if you don't look at investing in technology, I think you're going to be history. And the sooner you realize that, the better it is. We must also appreciate that people like Dharmesh and Murtaza, with no offense meant, are able to, transfer the cost over multiple clients. I think all small and medium practitioners do not have that benefit. So we have to realize that, when you make that investment, it may be a significant chunk of what you are earning, but you cannot avoid it. So the sooner you become friendly with technology, the sooner you invest in technology, at least you will be able to stay in the game. Otherwise, at some point of time, I think you will find that you're losing out. It's a word of caution from my side, but I thought it was necessary to add that to the small and medium scale practitioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes,
Very
thank
well
you.
said.
I think
Thank you.
rightly said, Nikhil.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
with that, now, if everyone is okay, I request Rajesh Bhai for the formal and much deserved vote of thanks for Dharmesh. Over to you, Rajesh.
Absolutely. Internal audit is compulsory for any small, mid, and large size corporate, and it is mandatory by law. But in current digital world, by use of artificial intelligence and robotics, this can be done with accuracy. In digital area, we see a professional with the help of other professionals like IT and finance, etc. We can minimize risk of email compromise, frauds, and losses of funds, and this can be done on ongoing basis. Our faculty, CA Dinesh Bareja and CA Dharmesh Jadav, has given their thought in all perspective of internal audit. So that is why very less questions were there. And on behalf of WRC, we give hearty vote of thanks to them. Thank you.
Thank
And
thank you
you
so
all.
much. Thank you,
And
everyone.
thank you, Murtuza. Excellent,
Thank
I
you
think, program.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Nikhil
you.
sir.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Amy, sir. Thank you very
Thank you,
much for
Ketan. Bye.
Nikhil sir.
Bye, Nikhil.
Most welcome. Goodbye. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.